Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у щах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Хто воде всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 461 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And tonight we have a ton of news to go over. Big news, bigly.
And I gotta tell you, it's bigly. And we got a load of news to cover tonight. Amazing news from the Ukrainians once again beginning what appears to be another push in the Bakhmut area and overrunning Russian forces and forcing them into a rout. And in the Moscow area, seeing a mass drone attack occurring on the capital city of the Russian Federation. There is a lot of news to cover tonight. And we're, of course, going to be starting off from one high note tonight and moving directly on into the next one. That's pretty much how we're going to be running tonight, because there is nothing but massive amounts of news. And so starting off in the city of Moscow, we saw that today unknown drones began to appear in the sky in the dozens and started to attack the city of Moscow. To summarize what we've been told that most of these drones have been shot down, although a few were confirmed to have hit either buildings in the area or to have exploded in the nearby fields around the city of Moscow. So without further ado, let's get into one of our first clips of one of the drones flying over Moscow. And here's the clip. It's a very small one. And also, I have to say, that kind of just looks like a Cessna 172. Like, it has like a similar body shape and everything to that drone. It's not a Cessna 172, but the first time I saw this clip, I seriously thought it was. We see it flying on over into the distance right there, and that's the end of that clip. But one of our first video clips that we saw today of the drones flying over Moscow. After that, a video came out just afterwards of a Pantsir supposedly shooting down one of the drones that was flying into the city. But interestingly enough, this video was weirdly cut, and there is something important to note about this. And so here's the Pantsir system, and it's about to fire off one of its surface-to-air missiles right here. And there goes the missile. And then the video cuts on to later, where you can see a plume of smoke that isn't even really in the direction of where that missile was fired. The missile was fired way further up at an angle. Of course, they can change direction in flight, obviously, but another interesting thing to note is that you can see a small little amount, like a trace amount of smoke coming from the ground where that cloud is. And it looks like something actually blew up on the ground out there, and then this is, I guess you could say, the explosion cloud floating up into the sky, more so than it was the Pantsir able to shoot something down. At least that's what it looks like in the clip, and you can even see as the video keeps on going, just for the few seconds we can see that cloud, it is moving upwards and to the left side of the screen. Right there. And so it looks like the Pantsir wasn't able to shoot down whatever it was going for, and it may have hit its target in the distance. With that, we're going to be moving on into our next bit of news, further down the line, where we can also see somewhat minor damage to a building. Well, actually, really quickly, let me go show y'all another video of one of these drones exploding in a field, and then let me bring y'all back to this, because something isn't really adding up here for me. So this is a video clip that was also taken during the drone attacks, and it is claimed to be a person looking out of their apartment building and into the distance, and they saw one of these drones crash land into a field somewhere in the far outskirts of Moscow City, and they watched the drone explode. So here's the video clip, and tell me if this is a big explosion or not. So there it is. It's blown up. And I gotta say, Matty, that thing was just probably a couple of pounds away from being a Moab, just based on the size of that explosion.
Seems like it.
Now, what's interesting is that later on, according to Russian authorities, they also claimed that this was a drone that was shot down that was heading towards Moscow. One of them hit a building, and we got video evidence of the damage that one of these drones, supposedly an exact kind to this explosive yield, hit a building, and we got to see the damage it caused. So let me bring y'all over to this video real quick. So we can see a whole bunch of people gathered around, looking up the top of this high-rise, and that's the damage it left behind. It's just a little bit of charring on top of the building and a very small hole above one of the apartments. So I have to approach y'all with this. How in the world does a drone, well, supposedly one of the exact same drones that looks like in this clip it was a Moab, let's watch it again. Right out there, how in the world does that kind of explosive force result in a tiny amount of charring and really no damage to a building that it hits?
It's got to be a totally different explosive.
It's got to be a totally different explosive, because this is almost like, what in the world would it be like? It's like a drone with a RPG.
Bomblet almost.
Yeah, like a bomblet or an RPG-7 warhead ran into this building. It's not even the same kind of explosive yield that could have caused this kind of damage. But we can see them showing it on film. From what we understand, this was taken by a Russian citizen, and we can now see a fragment, supposedly, of the drone that hit the building. And so with that, that's the end of that clip, and we're now going to be moving on into our last one from the city of Moscow, where we also saw another drone flying overhead. This one also appeared to be of the exact same kind as the other one we saw earlier on film. So here's the clip. We can hear some kind of ground fire, and we can see it flying over. Interestingly enough, though, if anyone notices, this one's flying in the reverse direction of the one we saw earlier. Earlier, it was flying this side facing forward. Now it's flying this side, the rear side facing forward. So let me show you all the two clips there. And I'm not trying to, make a conspiracy theory out of this or anything. It's just that a lot of these video clips that all did come out today from Moscow, some of them just aren't really adding up, like, to me. So here's this drone, and also pay close attention. Notice the larger wings are up front, and they're in the direction of where the aircraft is heading. If you look in the next clip, it's the opposite. The drone is flying backwards, it seems. I don't know what's up with that.
That's new technology I've never seen before.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then it just disappears into the horizon.
The video is reversed, right?
From what we understand, I don't think this video is reversed. I think this is actually the correct, video replay. It's going forwards in time.
Huh, I could have sworn it was reversed.
Let's watch this again one more time. That would be really weird if it is reversed.
It has to be.
But, well, then why are the bird chirps not reverse sounding? The bird chirps sound normal.
Maybe they replayed the audio front to back and reversed the video.
I don't know. Let's watch this one more time. And you know what? That might actually need to be a poll. Is this video clip reversed or not? Because I'd be interested in what people are thinking. No, it can't be reversed, because this guy just said "duh," which is yes, and if it was reversed, it'd be like "yeah," or something like that. He just said the Russian word, and it was playing forward. So this video is not reversed. This is the real-time video from start to finish, forwards, not backwards.
And I see everyone saying canard. Not really sure what that refers to, but maybe the enforcer knows.
It refers to the kind of I guess you could say, elevators being more so towards the front of the plane than behind the main wing. But here's my thing, y'all. We watched the exact same drone in that clip flying in this one. And let's watch this one again. And it's flying over. Same drone design and everything. I mean, you can tell it is the exact same design. The fuselage has like a Coke bottle shape, where it tapers off more towards the what we would assume would be the elevators. It's a larger wing. You can hear in the video, it sounds as though the audio is not playing in reverse, it's playing forwards. So it appears to be two separate videos showing two identically designed drones flying in two separate ways, one backwards, one forwards. And a lot of you, this is becoming very contentious in the live chat, and this is very interesting because I don't really know what to take of this right now. And some people are saying they aren't the same vehicles. But if we look at them fairly well, they seem to be. Let's go back to the other one again, and let's take a look at it. So, when we see this one here, you can once again see elevators towards the back, wings kind of shaped like, I guess you could say, warbird wings, if you want to call them.
Play it on through real quick, the old video. The prop sound is completely different. It's silent and doesn't sound right.
Well, they're saying that this one may have actually glided in. At least that's, I think, what the video caption said. This one looks to be silent. Maybe the engine is turned off. So it's assumed on the video caption that this one was gliding into its target. but very interesting nonetheless. A lot of people are saying one of the videos was reversed. Other people are saying canards. Some people are saying they're just completely different. To me, the differences on the two are pretty hard to tell, so I don't really know if they are different or not. So I'm going to withhold judgment and let y'all decide if they are different or not. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from these clips and into the overall information that we got on the drone attack in Moscow today. And from what we were able to hear, something around 50 to 60, as an approximate, drones were flying in the area of Moscow during this attack, and all 50 to 60 of these drones were involved in this attack, supposedly. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, the air defenses around the city were able to shoot most of these drones down. However, a few did end up hitting some of the buildings like we saw in the clips and have caused some damage. We have not been able to confirm who was behind this attack or if any actual damage or harm was caused to the Russian citizenry beyond the charred exteriors of the building that we saw on clip. So I don't really know. We actually don't know. There has been no official statement from any group today as to who really did this. Of course, the Russians are probably going to end up trying to blame the Ukrainian government for this attack, but nobody really knows because the Ukrainians have not stepped up to make a claim on this. And on top of it, it's a very large amount of drones. According to the official stated number, somewhere in between 50 to 60 drones is so high that we've rarely ever even seen Russian drone attacks where they buy up a massive amount of shaheads and then just fly them towards Ukraine. We've never even heard of those kinds of drone attacks getting into those numbers, except for a very few small times. So once again, it's completely up in the air right now as to who really caused this attack, and I've heard multiple things today that kind of share with y'all the multiple different theories that have been stated. One, of course, the most unlikely one, is that the Ukrainians were the ones behind the attack. The second theory is that this is a Russian false flag attempt to try and scare the citizens of Moscow into being more susceptible to mobilization, conscription, and other measures like that. And then a third theory is that this was actually launched by Ukrainian partisan groups or pro-Ukrainian partisan groups, or maybe even anti-Russian government partisan groups that are trying to attack the Russian government. Those are kind of the three running theories right now, you know, really whichever one you go with, although some are a little bit more likely and a little bit less likely than others. Really, there is no clear answer right now as to which one it is, so it's really up to y'all to decide what that really is. Is it Ukrainian? Is it partisan? Is it the Russian government conducting a false flag attack? No one really knows right now, but it was a massive attack nonetheless, and has been blanketing the news circles today practically all over. I mean, like, hell, even some of the mainstream news channels, like, I believe CNN, have even ended up covering this story because it was such a shocking story, to say the least, that a massive drone attack would happen on Moscow City. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from Moscow because meanwhile, at the Belarusian border, we can see that the Belarusian border guards are trying to prepare themselves for the worst. They also think that a drone attack like this must be inevitable, and so now they're trying to get their border guard vehicles ready to go. And we can see that apparently the UAZ they have at this border guard checkpoint doesn't really work that well. And I'll have to mute the music because it's probably copyrighted Woo Kazooie or something like that, but we can see they're having a massive problem with this UAZ. They're like pushing it around the checkpoint, like without aim. They're just doing it over and over and over. I don't know what's up with it, but we see them putting it back.
They're trying to figure out how a car works.
They're going, I think this thing has a push start plate or something like that.
Oh,
maybe we
call it an automobile.
Dude, they took push start literally. They're literally trying to wind it up like one of those little toy cars you get where you like pull it back and let it go and it goes flying across the floor. They're like, maybe if we do that a couple of times, maybe it'll work. I don't know what the hell's up with these three stooges here at the Belarusian border checkpoint, but I don't think their little UAZ is working. I think we can get that out of the video. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip near the Belarusian border and on down into the direction of Shebekino, just about a few dozen miles south and east of the major town of Belgorod, which is only about 25 to 30 miles away from the Ukrainian border. Here in Shebekino, once again in the territory of the Russian Federation, we saw another explosion occur, and it appears that the town of Shebekino in the Belgorod Oblast is being heavily targeted by pro-Ukrainian groups or pro-Ukrainian artillery in an attempt to destroy Russian forces in the area. With that, that's the end of that clip. But once again, it appears that whatever group is targeting Shebekino, they are attempting to mostly destroy Russian military targets. And we have seen that Shebekino, ever since the Belgorod border raid by the Freedom of Russia Legion and the Russian Volunteer Corps, Shebekino has become a priority target for anti-Russian groups, and it seems as though it may be some kind of a directed attack based off of information or intelligence that there is a buildup of Russian forces or a large garrison of Russian forces in this area of the border. This also did occur at the exact same time it began during the Belgorod border raids near Grivoron, just a couple of dozen miles away to the west and right on the Ukrainian border. That started to occur then and has been happening like clockwork for several weeks at this point that the town of Shebekino has been under barrage and attack. We're now going to be moving on from the town of Shebekino as well, and we're now going to be moving on down into Mariupol really quickly, because we've finally gotten a picture beyond Luhansk of the kind of damage that a Storm Shadow missile is able to produce once it hits its target. We already knew that Storm Shadows were a devastating missile. They have a very large explosive yield, but we've never really seen beyond the Luhansk attack what that damage looks like in reality. And we finally got to see that today after the Storm Shadows, last time we were on air on Sunday, ended up flying into the city of Mariupol, of course not being intercepted due to their stealth abilities, and then hitting the main Russian headquarters in the area. And the damage was unbelievable, really. That is the Russian military headquarters for the area as it stands today. And I'll try and get that picture a little bit larger for y'all. Half the building's gone, and it was from a single Storm Shadow missile.
That is a pretty powerful missile, I would say.
That is a freaking powerful missile. And you can see that this appears to be the side that actually was not hit head-on by the Storm Shadow. It looks as though the other side may have been hit by the Storm Shadow, and it collapsed the entire wall on that side of the building. And I think we actually have a picture. Yeah, we do. From what appears to be the other side, which we can see right here. And this building was torn to shreds. There's almost nothing left of this building that exists. Now, I would assume that the Russian command staff that was most likely living and working out of this building have ceased to exist at this point of the war and most likely will not be returning to combat. They'll most likely be returning to pushing up sunflowers in the fields in the nearby area. But it is unbelievable to really see the kind of damage that a Storm Shadow missile can produce when it hits a building square on. And that really begs the question, because we don't actually have an exact number right now. How much explosive mass is in a Storm Shadow missile? Because it appears to be greater than 500 pounds. So let's go see. So, the warhead on a Storm Shadow, if we can get it, let's see, is a multi-state. Let's see, the warhead weight is nearly 1,000 pounds. So it's almost like a 1,000-pound bomb ramming right into the side of that building, almost at a level head-on, and then exploding onto it. So we can kind of get a good idea why the explosion was that devastating, and why the building no longer exists. And I gotta tell you, I think this might be one of the best weapons the Ukrainians have gotten so far, at least in terms of being able to target a Russian command and communication buildings, because this is really the only one that can reach anywhere within the occupied territories of Ukraine. And since the, I guess you could say, late summer of last year, Russian military headquarters began to move farther and farther behind the lines. And we do know of several confirmed command buildings and command cities that the Russians are currently using in the occupation. And to use Deep State for this, we know that Luhansk is one of the command cities, most likely commanding the Russian brigades or army groups that are currently in combat all the way from the direction of Kupiansk and most likely all the way down towards Avdiivka. From there, we believe that the frontline command structure is then taken over in Mariupol, and they command the areas from Avdiivka and almost all the way down through the southern front as well. Then the Melitopol command pretty much takes over the area from Kherson and all the way towards the very end of the Zaporizhzhia reservoir near Vasilivka. We believe that's most likely how the command structure, at least breaking down, I guess you could say, theaters of operation Ukraine, function for the Russians. And then all of these command groups either communicate with Rostov-on-Don or they communicate with Moscow directly, but we're not really clear on the command structure beyond the, I guess you could say, towns that are being used as command centers so far in the war. And we can now see that thanks to the Storm Shadow, all of these cities, Luhansk, Mariupol, and Melitopol, which were completely off limits to the Ukrainians before they got the Storm Shadow missile, are now on the menu, and now Russian command units aren't even safe inside of those cities, which for the entirety of the war up until the Storm Shadow was introduced, were considered completely safe. Not even the HIMARS, which was one of their longest range, I guess you could say frontline artillery systems, was able to reach that far behind the lines. Really, the only thing the Ukrainians had up until the Storm Shadow was the Tu-141 Strych, which we saw them using against Russian airfields in Ryazan and Saratov, but apparently they didn't trust the accuracy well enough to start using it on the Russian command buildings within Luhansk, Mariupol, and Melitopol. But with the Storm Shadow, apparently they are confident enough in its abilities and accuracy to aim it directly at the command buildings, and it appears they're getting some incredible results like these pictures are showing right here. And so absolutely great to see. Good to know that they were able to knock out another Russian command structure, and that might throw that area of the front lines, at least for the Russian army, into a little bit of chaos, or even further chaos than they already have been, at least for the next several days, maybe the next 2 weeks, until another command building and another command group is able to be reformed, and then try and keep communications with the front lines. So we know that this area will most likely be suffering from a sizable amount of confusion, at least in between Avdiivka and all the way down towards Kharkiv, for a little bit of a while. We're now going to be moving on from Mariupol and on into the area of Kherson, because while we've been having some very interesting news today about the Ukrainians being introduced to Storm Shadow missiles and being able to hit Russian command centers, and also a large drone attack occurring on the city of Moscow, everything is not always sunshine and rainbows. And of course, a war is not always sunshine and rainbows, and it won't always be one. We, of course, have seen once again what appears to be Russian war crimes being committed within the liberated areas of the Kherson Oblast. As many of you all may know, the entirety of the western region of the Kherson Oblast that had been occupied by Russian Federation forces since almost the onset of the war was liberated around December. And since then, we have seen isolated Russian attacks against either the city of Kherson itself or the surrounding areas and villages, most likely trying to target the Ukrainian citizenry directly. We saw one of the worst examples of that today on drone footage, as we saw a farm become the target of multiple what appears to be Fab 500 glide bombs that glided into the farm and practically leveled the entire thing today. We do not have any information if there were any Ukrainian citizens inside of this farm compound, and if there was, how many may have possibly been wounded or killed. But considering that they targeted a farm installation where there is no clear military units, this does fall within the confines of a war crime. The rules of war dictate that firing on civilian buildings, one must have information that there are no civilians inside this building, and there are only enemy combatants, and only then, under those circumstances, can the building be targeted and be completely fine and completely plausible to target under the rules of war. None of that was confirmed from what we understand. There are no visible military vehicles in this video, and we will see the farm buildings here practically get cratered by the Fab 500s, which are coming in right here. We now see some Ukrainian citizens returning to the farm. They may have even been near the farm when it was attacked or on it. And they're now looking at the farm buildings, and we can see that these glide bombs practically destroyed most of the farm. And of course, in the video, we can see that there are no visible signs of military vehicles in the area. We can see some farming equipment like a combine, a tractor, and it appears to be a transport truck over here. Not a military transport truck, by the way, just one used by the farm. And we can also see two others further to the left side of the road.
It's these type of attacks to me that prove that Russia's not just out to take land, they're out to try to wipe the Ukrainians out too.
And there's really no other way to classify this attack. This is a criminal attack against citizens. And you can clearly see there's nothing to indicate this is a military compound anywhere in that video. And the farm was practically cratered. It seems as though these people may have actually been on the farm, maybe out in the fields when the compound was attacked, and then they returned to it after the glide bombs exploded. That may have been the case. And so these people, if that is the story, narrowly avoided death because the Russians are outright targeting Ukrainian civilian buildings and structures in an attempt to kill off the Ukrainian citizenry. And hopefully, the Hague or other kinds of institutions that look into war crimes and prosecuting the ones responsible have a look at this video and also have a war crimes prosecutor sent out to this area to document the actions that the Russians have taken and to make sure that the Russian Air Force pilots and coordinators that made this mission possible are the ones to be punished once the war ends, if that is possible. We're now going to be moving on from the Oblast of Kherson, at least for the while, and we're now going to be moving up into the area of Kyiv, where we saw a very interesting video, and it's somewhat humorous, although the video does show a car nearly getting schmacked. In the middle of an air attack the other day, it happened in broad daylight actually, there was a missile that was shot down over Kyiv, and the fragments of it began to fall everywhere. And one of these video clips, we saw security footage looking out at one of the larger highways moving through Kyiv, and one of the giant debris fragments just smacked right into the hood of a car. And you can tell it was pretty shocking, but no one was injured, luckily. So here's the clip. We can see the missile fragment just hit right in front of the car, and everyone just keeps rolling.
They're probably in shock.
I mean,
they didn't expect a missile to come falling down.
I would be in shock, man. Imagine this, man. You're sitting there listening to music. You know, you're going on your way to work, and you just sit there. What's going on? Oh my God! You know, it's like Jesus, man. I would honestly have to pull over and just sit there for a minute because that would be a lot to handle. But luckily, no one was injured, so everyone could get a little bit of a laugh out of this. That it was just a freak incident, and somehow in the middle of this busy highway, nobody got injured by that. Very lucky for the driver, and very lucky for everyone else on the road. But with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip, and we're now going to be moving on into our location unknowns. We actually have a pretty decent amount of location unknowns today, but not many from yesterday, which was day 460, and those are the blue markers you see on the map. We actually make this map every single day. It's an exclusive map made specially for this channel, and we put in hours of work every single day to put down these markers in an approximate location of where they are on the battlefield, and if we can't find where they are on the battlefield, we actually end up putting them here in the location unknowns, just for videos for folks to watch, although we don't really know where these videos happened. But one thing that's very interesting, though, speaking of where things happen, a question has been asked tonight of what happened over Moscow. And loads of y'all, it appeared that well over 1,000 of y'all have weighed in on this question and kind of gave an answer in y'all's own way. Many of y'all gave many different answers. It's very interesting. And Matthew, tell us what they were talking about and what the answers were to what happened in Moscow today.
All right, so before we get to that one that's currently running, we're going to get to our very first one, which said yesterday Moscow was attacked by 8+ drones and buildings were damaged, and who was behind it? It looks like 40% said partisans were behind it, 22% said Russia was behind it, 21% said Ukraine did it, and 17% said unsure. And on this one, I have to say that it has the appearance of a false flag attack to me. That's my educated guess. But I will have to go with the 40%. I think maybe partisans were behind it, and my second option would be the Russians. The false flag theory, it needs a little bit more evidence to be proven as a fact, but it's looking that way. So I'm going to play it safe and say partisans. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, of course, any answer right now, the reason why we run polls like this is because there really is no clear answer, so it's really up to y'all to decide what y'all believe is correct or not. But to weigh in my opinion, I believe it most likely would be a partisan attack. It's not completely out of the realm to say that partisans could pile up a large amount of drones, most likely fill them with some kind of improvised explosives and send them on into Moscow. There's nothing out of the question to say that that's completely possible. So, in my opinion, I'd say it's a pretty good chance. I would have to go with a large majority. It's most likely some kind of a partisan attack. But once again, who really knows? It could have been a false flag attack. Maybe, and I'm saying this is a little bit of a smaller possibility, but it's not completely out of the question. It may have even been an attack by the Ukrainian government, although I feel like that's a bit of a stretch. I would say the other two are most likely on equal footing in terms of its plausibility. But with that, I hope we addressed that one fairly well. I'm very interested to hear y'all's input on that because it's
y'all.
Y'all. Someone said, stop saying y'all. It's like, we're from the South. Y'all. We say that down here. Y'all. But anyways, I hope we answered that one. And let's get on to the next question because there's another good one that was asked.
All right, and our second poll says Ukraine denied involvement in the Moscow drone attack, but predicts an increase in attacks. And what are your thoughts? It looks like 38% said, Ukraine might have helped a bit. 34% said, I believe Ukraine, and they didn't do it. 15% said unsure, and 14% said it sounds disingenuous by Ukraine. And I have to say, I would take Ukraine at their word on this one, that they weren't involved in it. However, the second part of that statement, predicting an increase in attacks, That kind of struck me as a tad bit odd. It was almost like a sly way of saying, we're coming again. But, that's kind of looking into it a little deep. I will say that I think Ukraine might have helped a little bit, but they weren't the main orchestrators behind it. But Enforcer, what say you?
Now, I would have to say things like that do happen in Russia probably have some kind of a small amount of Ukrainian involvement in them. Obviously, it would be completely amiss to say there would be absolutely no Ukrainian involvement whatsoever in something like that. But I don't really think the Ukrainians were completely involved, in my honest opinion, because doing something like that seems to be a little bit out of character for the Ukrainians, especially targeting civilian buildings like the one we saw that had a small little splot mark right on the top where the drone exploded. So I'd have to be honest, maybe they had a little bit of involvement in it, but I don't think they were completely involved in it. So with that, I hope that does address that one fairly well, and let's get on to the next one.
All right, and we're getting on to our third one, which says Putin claims that the Moscow drone attack is terrorism by Ukraine, and we should expect a severe response. And what are your thoughts? 55% said Putin is selling his false flag attack. 23% said it's just all talk and no concern whatsoever. 12% said unsure, and 10% said he's right, and it was done by Ukraine. And on this one, of course, the Russians are back at it again with that strong talk they love to do. We've heard the statement, expect a severe response, so many times, it's really impossible to take that seriously at this point. I really don't think anything's going to come out of this. It's just all talk, and I don't have any concern that Russia's actually going to retaliate. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, like Matthew said, we've heard this whole severe response thing so many times, and we've seen what the severe response is several times, actually, Matthew, if you recall. Like the last time a drone blew up over the Kremlin, they said there was going to be a severe response, and then like 30 Shaheds went flying over the border, which, if that's what they call severe, that is like a pillow fight in terms of severity. That's nothing. And the Ukrainians can deal with a drone attack like with Shaheds perfectly fine. In fact, their air defense seems to be perfecting the craft of practically shooting down almost all of them, even when they sent in nearly 50 of them during the last attack, and only 2 of them made it through. So I would say that he's once again probably trying to just, hype up the talk. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think he's trying to sell a false flag. I'd actually have to go against the 54% here, at least in my opinion, although it may be a false flag and he may be trying to sell it to the public. I think it's just talk. Because regardless of who did this, the Ukrainians are always going to be an easy scapegoat. So if it is anti-Putin partisans, like the Freedom of Russia Legion, that conducted this attack, guess what? They're going to blame Ukraine, because Ukraine is the one that they're fighting in a war, so they're a very easy person to blame everything on, regardless of who it is. So I think it's all just hype talk, and he's not really going to do much, and if he does anything, it's going to be a very limited response. We already know that the Russians, in terms of missile attacks, have practically exhausted their available supply of cruise missiles. Both the Kalibrs, the Iskanders, the Kinzels have been proven to just be nothing more than a glorified Iskander, and then also I believe they actually use the Tu-141 Strych like the Ukrainians use. But I'm not specifically sure. There's another variant of... Wait, it's the X-101. It's that one, the X-101 missile. They have been trying to use that one a little bit, but that one's proven to be practically ineffective against Ukrainian air defense. Ukrainian air defense shoots it down like it's target practice, so it seems that they're not really wanting to use that one much as well. So their response will really only be a very limited amount of cruise missiles and maybe a large amount of Shaheds, which once again will also be easily shot down. So there really is no large response that they can make at this point. And we also know that doesn't mean that the Russian army is really going to play for real now and then start pushing the Ukrainians back, because they've been playing for real for 461 days and nothing's been able to help them out for real, if you know what I mean. And so with that, I hope that does address...
The silly part is every time Russia says they're going to respond severely, they get the same guy to say it every single time. They bring out Peskov, the squirrely-looking guy, the spokesman, to come out and say, "Oh, expect a severe response." It's like Putin literally just points at him and has that line like pre-recorded. There he is. Just point to him. He says the same thing every time.
Oh man, dude, he comes out with that haircut, that $5 haircut, and he goes, "Expect a big response this time." It's like, dude, the only big response there should be is a response from you to your barber and giving him a 1 star on Yelp and saying, "How in the world can you butcher a scalp this bad?" I mean, like,
man,
that is bad.
In Russia,
man.
They call it Yelp. They call it help.
Dude, in Russia, you don't put a review on Yelp. Yelp puts a review on you. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. But Matthew's right. They always have the same sad guy with that terrible haircut come out every single time. And then he says that crap. And it's like, dude, no one even believes you people anymore. It's like, if you actually had severe responses, like, lined up, yeah, people would believe you. But you say that they say that to everything. And then they sit there and they never have an actual severe response. It's like the weakest kind of hanky-panky responses you can get. And it's like, come on, man. It's like, come on, man. We don't even believe him at this point. I mean, hell, I would believe that they were in the Himalayas with Xi Jinping more so than anything else right now. But with that, I hope we addressed that one fairly well. And it's now time for us to get on into some questions from the folks here in the live chat who are part of the LSA. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and real quick, I got two things to say before we get to our super chat questions. First off, I want to say shout out to Rob Eisman. Not getting into all the details, we don't need to air all that out on the stream, but Rob, I hope you make a very fast recovery, and I'm glad to hear that you're doing better. And Enforcer, would you like to comment?
And I would as well. I have been hearing in the background a little bit about what you've been going through, Rob, and also I believe you shared a small amount of that with us before, and I hope that you are doing better, Rob, because you are an absolute legend here in the Lee Spring Army, and you've been here for an incredibly long time. Not only that, you're a very interesting person with a very, I guess you could say, very colorful background and story. If any of y'all don't know, and Rob is a very proud submariner, he was actually a submariner here in the U.S. Navy, and has had a very interesting, I guess you could say, service life with the submarines. And so I've got to say, very, very instrumental member of the Lee Spring Army, and I do hope that you have a speedy recovery, and I hope you are doing better. And if everyone in the Lee Spring Army here in the live chat tonight could wish Rob Eisman a speedy recovery, I'm sure he'd be very appreciative, and we'd also be very appreciative to y'all as well. And so with that, I hope we address that fairly well. And also, Matthew, I believe we have one big announcement to make before I hand this back over to you, and you'll know what announcement that is before we get to it. We've actually made a decision. And this was not a decision we took lightly, but it is one we had to make nonetheless, that we were going to shut down the P.O. box. And I know that many of y'all might not like to hear the news of that, but considering the never-ending amount of harassment that we have been receiving from various sources, and many of y'all know the source we're talking about, and also the threats that we've seen start to circle around, it is kind of concerning us at this point to open up boxes that we receive in the mail, because it's not really going to be clear to us what may be inside of those boxes. It could be, in all seriousness, it could be a bomb, it could be anthrax, could be a myriad of many things. It could be that someone craps in a box and sends us to it, sends that to us. It could be anything. And we really want to try and avoid that stuff because, in case y'all don't know, opening boxes is very scary for us, considering that we have gotten death threats throughout the entirety of the war. And so even if we do know that it's a box being sent by someone we know, sometimes random boxes just show up. We actually had a package show up to a place that nobody should have really known was an address they could mail anything to, and it showed up there. And so we're actually going to be closing down the P.O. box, but in good news, we did open up a large amount of boxes today that did make it through the P.O. box before we started shutting it down. And I'm actually going to let Matthew take over because he has the list. So with that, take it away, Matthew.
All right, and for our last packages out of the P.O. box, big shout out to Santiago Flores, James Lamar, and also Rick Ropchin. Santiago sent us a really cool Brick Mania by Rocker TB2, and also he sent the Stugna P kit as well. So super cool, Santiago, and also very nice letter you sent as well, and we really do appreciate it. Also, James Lamar, he sent us Bobcat stickers with like a big
number 2
X or big X over it, like for the destroyed Bobcats. Very cool, James, and thank you for sending those to us. And also, Rick, he sent us some wearable blankets. And in fact, he actually donates a ton of those blankets to Ukraine and sends them over the mail. So he sent us 2 of them as well to have to thank us for the contributions that all of us here at the LSA have been doing. And also, he suggested a really good idea that we're going to probably take him up on, and we'll announce more about that later on. But once again, thank you all for the very kind letters and also the really cool gifts, by the way, and we really do appreciate it. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I have to thank y'all all as well, every single one of y'all for sending us neat stuff in the mail. And I have to thank everyone else who has so far sent us stuff in the mail through the P.O. box for sending that. Of course, we won't be able to do that here forward in the future, and that'll probably be a decision that lasts forever because If y'all do not know, to get into exact details, there are people out there right now, and this has become more so to the forefront, especially since it is kind of happening in plain sight instead of just getting an occasional email about it. There are people who are trying to mass report this channel. There are people who are trying to DDoS our stream while it's live on air. Some of y'all may have been able to experience that tonight. There are people who are saying that maybe someone ought to come around and inflict some true physical violence on us. And one of the ways that cowards could probably be able to reach us the easiest is through the mail. And so we kind of want to deny them the ability to just get us indirectly through a box in the mail. And so we're closing it down for that reason. But I want to thank everyone who has sent a package so far, because we have appreciated every single one of y'all's gifts so much. And some of these gifts really tell a lot about who our viewers are themselves. They're very neat, like the little radio transmitter, like vacuum tube looking thing that we got in the mail, and the knife that Matthew actually used a good bit to open up a lot of the boxes afterwards, and that thing is sharp. And then and then the stockings that we got, the coasters that we got, everything that we've gotten. It's been amazing, and I've got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for sending all these neat little things through the mail, because we'll be making sure to put them up behind the scenes, and we'll always be making sure to keep y'all in mind, and those little mementos are certainly a great way to keep y'all in mind whenever we're running our show. And so with that, thank y'all so much once again, and I hope y'all do understand, although it's a little unfortunate, why we have to close down the P.O. box. But with that, we are now going to be getting on into our questions. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so our very first super chat is going to go to none other than, guess who? Mark, General of the LSA. He puts in a $210 donation. Extremely generous, Mark, and thank you very much once again. And he says, 1/3 evil. Ukraine is a capable weapons developer, and why have we not seen them produce a large volume of long-range missiles, given their capabilities and the urgency of war?
And I thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Mark. And also, he's only 1/3 evil, Matt. He did put in 222, and if we multiply that by 3, we get, the number.
Oh, are you telling me I messed up his joke for the second time?
Yeah, you messed it up again.
Oh my God.
I had to make sure we went back, though, to get the joke, because I was like, man, he did it again. Because Matthew always translates the currency to US dollars. So if you send it in like euros, and the number is supposed to have some kind of significance, like 69, nice. It'll probably be translating to like 72 or something like that. But anyways, they are completely capable, Mark, of producing advanced weapons. In fact, during the Soviet times, the Ukrainian nation was largely the, I guess you could say, technology colony of the Soviet Union. They would produce all of the Soviet Union's most advanced systems, whether they be computer-based, weapon-based, or missile-based. They largely originated from inside of Ukraine. And after the war, they've been able to retain that ability far better than other post-Soviet countries have been able to retain some of their abilities. The thing is, though, so while the Ukrainians are fairly advanced for being a Eastern European country or an ex-Soviet bloc country, some of their technology is hard for them to make. For example, the Hrem or the Grom, which is a heavily modified and heavily modernized Iskander-like missile, that is actually a little bit difficult for them to make, and they are fairly expensive. In fact, a Hrem or a Grom costs a few more million than a Storm Shadow missile costs. And so it may not be that they are having a problem producing these, it may be a problem of cost efficiency, because many people never see this in the background in a war, but I'm sure you know about this, Mark. You always want to make sure that things are run as cost efficiently as possible, and that also applies to wars. And so it is far better to have good ammunition, okay ammunition, and a larger amount of it, than it is to have amazing ammunition, but only have a handful of them. And that may be the issue that the Ukrainians are running into, and that's why we're not really seeing that many domestic I guess you could say designs or weapons, at least in that category, being used by the Ukrainians, because they may find it too expensive to produce those, and it may be that those facilities are running in a bit of a odd way, considering that the war has begun, or it may have been that they were hit at some point in the war. But we don't really know, because the Ukrainians don't go into their war industry a great deal. It is a matter of national security, and so they usually hide from the public the I guess you could say, very advanced information of how are the Frem and Grom missile facilities, the missile facilities working, and are they producing any missiles? Because that may give the Russians information to work off of, and it may also give away their location. Because if the Russians hear that they're producing missiles and a certain quantity, they might, if they have the ability, start looking for certain kinds of shipments and certain kinds of supply trucks and also railroad wagons showing up to a certain factory that may be showing that they're producing a missile in there, and then they might try and hit it. So we don't really have a lot of information about the Ukrainian war production arena, but that would be my best guess of an answer as to why we may not be seeing missiles like the Grom or the Frem being produced in massive numbers. And that may be why they're relying on Western weapons like the Storm Shadow, because those are produced outside of Ukraine, so they're perfectly safe, they're more economical, and also they do the job about as good as their own domestic designs can. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, Mark, and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you make this possible for us to do each and every night. If it wasn't for folks like you, this channel would not be possible. And I got to thank everyone who supports this channel, big and small, because every little bit helps. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to none other than Jesus UCSB, who puts in a very generous $60 super chat. And it's good to see you again, Jesus, and thank you very much for that support. He says, "Hola," and let me remind you, I was right about Russian troops taking logistics from Ukraine, which was evident with the border attacks. And Jesus UCSB is now predicting a Russian coup and removal of Putin by the end of June. LSA for life, and he says at the bottom, Mexican tanker.
And thank you so much for the support, Jesus UCSB, our Elite Spring Army tanker. In fact, if we ever had a tank corps, which the ELSA never will, because the Elite Spring Army, honestly, as far as an army goes, I would say it's similar to like the Salvation Army, if it was similar to any other army right now. If we ever did get a tank corps, though, you would be the guy leading that tank corps for sure. And also, to answer that, you were right on that. They have been having a pretty bad problem with logistics, and the Ukrainians are making it a little bit more difficult for them. Now, as a prediction for a Russian civil war, I'd also largely have to agree with you, but I don't know when it would happen. That's one thing I think no one can really estimate right now, because in my opinion, I think they're already within the realm of having a civil war start up at any moment. But you know, the thing is that the war is kind of a binding glue right now that is keeping the government at least whole at the moment inside of Russia. Once the war begins to really falter, and we see that they practically lose all of the land they have inside of Ukraine, we may see that glue starts to fall apart and the Russian government begins to fracture into multiple pieces. And really, we don't need to be looking at the Russian government apparatus for where the civil war will begin. We really need to be looking at the oligarchs who are still inside of Russia and have begun to found mercenary groups like the Gazprom company creating their own Gazprom PMC. Those kinds of companies are most likely the ones that are going to be spearheading the conflict inside of Russia in the Civil War, considering that they are visibly already arming, and according to Prigozhin, for that kind of conflict. And from what Prigozhin said, he's already been ready for it for years, and that's pretty much the whole reason why he runs the Wagner PMC. At least that's what he said on a bus traveling into Bakhmut one day, like about a few months ago, but who really knows? But with that...
Did he really see the gas soldiers coming? Because I would have never saw that coming.
I don't think anyone ever saw the gas soldiers coming. I think what was so stupid about it is that even while it's a war, the Gazprom CEO is going to come up with stupid names like it's a Disney company, like a Torch and Flame for the mercenary units. It's like, what the hell is
Okay.
This is like Disney having a private army and calling it Mickey and Minnie. Like, those are the units, like Mickey Company and Minnie Company. And man, imagine how confusing that would be, like in a firefight, to have Mickey and Minnie as a company. You probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference in how they sounded, like in a very tense situation. So they may call one Mickey, and then they may call the underperforming company Goofy or something like that. Who knows? But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support, Jesus UCSB, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you, Jesus UCSB, for keeping the flag of the LSA flying, for keeping the flag of the LSA moving forward, and of course, helping this channel to keep on running as well. And speaking of credit that everyone can deserve, considering that we just talked about Mark's question and yours, is the fundraiser that we had. We haven't even mentioned the fundraiser tonight, but I had to go back and mention this for y'all real quick because I actually did some number crunching before the stream. The amount that we had raised on this Sunday's fundraiser was $13,335 the last time we counted. And that was and that was literally 10 minutes before the stream, so that was about an hour and 10 minutes ago. $13,335. In case y'all don't know, that is the largest fundraiser from what I could tell we have had over the past 3 months. It was a massive fundraiser, and I'm sure that $13,335 is going to be put massively towards helping out the folks that the revived soldiers of Ukraine are currently rehabilitating right now, believe it or not, in Bucha, where their operational facility is. It is amazing to think that y'all have been able to help out in such a massive degree, not just on that fundraiser, but over the course of the entire war. And I think some of y'all are about to be blown away by this figure, because I also added that fundraiser to our grand total raised across all of our fundraisers. And right now, we are sitting at a grand total over all of our fundraisers at $977,362. We are
close.
We are around $22,700 away from reaching $1 million raised over the course of this war. That is incredibly close.
Wild.
That is insane. That is crazy. In case y'all don't know, that could be one massive fundraiser away that we reach $1 million. And so it's unbelievable. And also, Matthew, let me put that in the chat real quick. I'll just write that in. 977,362. That is the total right there. I put it in the live chat just so that y'all can see. That is our grand total right now, and I cannot believe that we've been able to make it that far. And I got to thank you, Hazers UCSB, and Mark, General or Field Marshal of the LSA, for helping this to be possible. Y'all have been a massive part of the fundraisers and also a big part of helping this channel to keep on running. And I got to thank y'all for being integral members of making the Lee Spring Army's fundraisers possible and also helping these streams to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we'll be moving right into our location unknowns.
All right. And our third and last super chat of the first question segment goes to BC Skyman, the channel legend, who puts in a very generous $50 super chat. And thank you very much, BC, for that support. He says, Happy Memorial Day to the LSA family, and enforcers are the bomb.
Hey, thank you so much for the support, BC Skyman. And also, thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. Did he throw in 2 of them?
I think he did. There's one after that, too.
Oh, because I was trying to read that one. I was like, that is not the message. I was like, that is not the message that you just read. But I got to thank you so much for the support, BC Scum. And I also hope everyone had a great Memorial Day this Monday. I actually went out and hung out with a couple of my friends that were doing a little thing just a few miles away from my house. You know, I was about to make a joke there, but I was like, yeah, I'll hold back on that. But anyways, it was a great Memorial Day for me. I also got to hang out at a place where one of our viewers are from. If y'all have ever seen Coffarelli in the chat, I actually went to where he works, and funnily enough, he wasn't there. So I didn't get to meet him. I just got to meet one of my friends that I knew that also works there. But it was pretty cool nonetheless. So I had a great Memorial Day yesterday, and I hope you had a great one too, BC Skyman. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and also calling us the bomb. We're not explosive, at least unless if we have Taco Bell, then we both are explosive. But beyond that, thank you so much for calling us the bomb. It's very high praise, and we thank you greatly for enjoying this channel so much, BC Skyman, and helping us to keep this thing running, and also having an amazing car collection as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well, BC Skyman. And with that, we are now going to be moving on into our location unknowns. Starting off with yesterday's location unknowns, where we saw that the Ukrainian air defense was able to shoot down a target. We are assuming that this may have been a Stormer HVM, but we're not really sure. Here's the clip. We can now hear the AA system firing, and honestly, I'm going to have to take a big guess. I think this is a Stormer. We can see the missile, or more so, the darts, traveling towards the target. And poof, they got it. And it appears that it was a Shahed. Eagle! And it appears to have been a Shahed 136, and it is now spiraling to the ground. Whoa! Dude, that thing just broke up.
Dang.
Look at that. Dang. What made it break up? Like, I guess it just like did a weird turn in the air and it just lost its structural integrity and just ripped apart, I'm guessing, because nothing else hit it. Dang.
Давай донизу той здоровий кусок.
And so that's the end of the clip. Amazing to see the Ukrainian air defense in operation. And also, another interesting thing is that we can actually see a little bit of a Stormer HVM's control panel right here. And there are some very interesting controls over here. There is config. There is covert. Just in case you want the Stormer HVM to disappear, you can always click that button and it just goes invisible. You can also see hide TSS image. I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what a TSS is, honest. But then we can also see IFF controls. And we can see IFF interrogate. When you click that button, it just pulls out a megaphone and goes, "Where is the missile?" And then you see IFF normal / standby, where it just goes back into normal mode and it says, "So, how's the kids? How's the family?" And then down here you can see zoom in and zoom out controls on the map. And it appears that right now they're zoomed out to a range of 20 kilometers on the Stormer HVM's, I guess you could say, radar system. So very interesting to see what a Stormer HVM's control panel looks like, at least for what appears to be the gunner's position, because we don't really get to see this stuff a lot, especially from the British Army. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on into our next clips of Location Unknown News, where we saw one of those Ukrainian MT Rapiras, so famously known at the beginning of the war for being a quick improvised, I guess you could say mobile anti-tank gun. We can see them in operation again right here. We can see they're kind of using it as artillery, firing, and now they're going to reload. We can now see them reloading the Rapira. We can now see them running to the trench nearby, and we can now see them firing again. Now, what's very interesting about this is that this is not a quick improvised build. If y'all notice, they actually added some support legs to the back of this MTLB that can be deployed to stop it from recoiling as hard as it is right now. It appears that they're not deploying them for some reason, but still a very interesting addition to see. We now see the loading crew running back out of the ditch again to load the next round into the Rapira. We can hear some vehicle moving around nearby. We can now see them taking the empty ammo box and getting it out of the vehicle. Throwing it into the ditch. And we can now see the crew members continuing to help with the gun, taking some of the spent casings and moving them away from the MTLB. We now see them getting ready to fire the Rapira again right there. The MTLB is eventually going to end up running over these guys with that kind of recoil. We now see the soldier running out to the other side of the tree line. And that's the end of the clip. But very interesting to see another one of those MT Rapiras in action. Brand new improvised vehicle as far as this war, combining two old things into one new system. With that, we're going to be moving on into our next clip, where we also saw a indirect fire support mission from some Ukrainian helicopters, and we got to see this from above, looking down onto them. We rarely ever get to see a helicopter fire support mission like this, at least at this angle, so this is pretty unique. We can see the two white stripes on the back of the helicopter indicating it's Ukrainian as it fires off its rockets, and we're about to see it popping off its flares right there in a mass. We can now see the next Mi-24 also firing off its rockets, and now popping off some flares as well. They're now spinning on around, trying to make sure to avoid a Russian ground fire if there is any in the area, and once again getting below the tree line to make sure that they cannot line up a man-pad shot on them. We rarely ever get to see Ukrainian helicopters operating in the war like this at this point, and we also don't get to see a video clip of a drone observing them from above. That's actually a very rare video clip right here, and very neat to see that from a top-down perspective of what that looks like. With that, we're now going to be moving on from this little clip, once again a very interesting one, and on into our next one where we also saw another BTR-4 in training. And I have to be honest with y'all, it appears that these BTR-4s may possibly be multiplying. We have been able to confirm that throughout the war, the Ukrainians have lost several BTR-4s, and at the beginning of the war, the numbers of BTR-4s were fairly limited. There was only, I believe, around 40 of them in existence, which is even more rare than a T-90M in the Russian army. But as the wars continue to go on, and we've seen several of these BTR-4s being destroyed, we're starting to see more and more video clips from more and more different areas of the BTR-4 in action, which may be suggesting that the Ukrainians are still continuing to modify and upgrade older BTR APCs and converting them into BTR-4s, like this one right here in the clip. Also, we're going to be muting that because that is copyrighted to oblivion. We can see it driving by another BTR-4, making its way on past. We can see the front doors are wide open as they continue making their way through the training field. And once again, what's wild about this is that there's even more of them over here. There's another 2 of them that are parked on the side of the road. And I'm telling y'all, they must be producing more of these BTR-4s because we have not seen this many of them. And at the beginning of the war, these things were rare to see. And we haven't been able to confirm that around, I would say, at least 10 of them or more have been destroyed, which would be about a third of their BTR force. Yet as the war keeps going, we're seeing more of these things, which may suggest that somewhere out there is a small motor workshop that is converting older BTRs into BTR-4s. Because this is nothing more, once again, kind of like the Russians. This is the Ukrainians taking an older system, which is the BTR, I guess you could say APC of any variant, and then upgrading it into the BTR-4. Now, that's not to say that this is like a Russian upgrade where it's kind of like a half-assed upgrade where it isn't really that great. And this is actually pretty much a complete rebuild of the BTR-4, well, the BTR APC. Really, the only thing that's left from the original BTRs that this thing is being converted out of are the engine and also the hull and chassis. Everything else inside of it, as far as the targeting computers, the targeting systems, the gun, the turret, everything around that is brand new. So it is a massive upgrade from a normal BTR, and I'm assuming that they must be making the expense and the effort to continue to produce more of these, and they have certainly shown their worth, as we have also been able to see these BTR-4s puncturing the front plate armor of some of Russia's more modern main battle tanks, which shows that these things certainly have a place in the field in terms of infantry support and anti-tank operations, at least at closer ranges. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip and on into our next one, where we also saw a Ukrainian T-64BV with a small mine plow. We see mine plows occasionally, but this was a cool video to show because it also lets you hear the raw engine sound of the T-64. And man, that's a nice sound.
Sounds nice. Sounds like a Ford Raptor a little bit.
It kind of does, doesn't it? I really like the sound of that T-64. But that's the end of the clip, and just wanted to let y'all hear the nice engine sound of a T-64. With that, we're now going to be moving on into our last bit of Location Unknown news, where we can see the Russian losses over the past 24 hours. We don't have the past 48 hours. We only have
man, they got one.
They only got one, but they did get 51 cruise missiles, which is a bit of a number. Not that many. It's only 51 of them. And also, we saw that they were able to get 410 Russian soldiers. But oddly enough, we are starting to notice that the Russian casualty numbers are beginning to decrease a little bit over time. We used to see that they were up in the numbers of the 700s pretty normally. Now we're starting to see that they're dropping down into the 400s as a norm, and maybe showing that the Russian forces along the entirety of the line are largely disengaging from offensive actions even around the city of Bakhmut and are now taking up defensives. Usually drops in numbers like these do indicate that the Russians are still conducting some kind of a defensive action and no longer offensive actions, as offensive actions are naturally a costly endeavor in terms of manpower for any side that undergoes such an attempt. So this does appear to show that the Russians have disengaged from any offensive actions, and now their losses are being sustained entirely from frontline action and frontline exposure in defensive positions. We also saw that they only lost 2 armored personnel carriers today, and that is a significant decrease from our average over the war, where we've seen about 12 to 15 of these things being destroyed per day. Now only 2 of them have been destroyed today, which is a markedly small number. However, the Ukrainians were able to make up for this in the amount of destroyed supply trucks. And once again, while APCs and tanks being destroyed are incredibly important towards the Ukrainian war effort, those tanks and APCs cannot operate unless they have gas, parts to replace the ones that are broken, and also crews that are fed and able to think coherently. And all of that comes from your supply trucks. And seeing that another 12 of them have been destroyed today, bringing the total number of supply trucks destroyed up to around 6,219, we know that the Russian supply lines must be doing quite poorly, and that may be why the Russians are no longer attempting any kind of offensive actions along the line, once again resulting in the decreased losses we've seen today, like the only main battle tank that we saw being lost today, one of the lower numbers that we've seen so far in the war, and far below the average of around 5 to 6 that we would normally see in that category. However, Ukrainian counter battery has continued to be quite successful. Not as successful as the past week, but successful nonetheless, and was able to destroy around 10 artillery pieces over the past 24 hours, which is around 2 batteries plus 1. I guess you could call it a Baker's 10, if you want to call it that. But anyways, moving on from that, we also saw that they were able to destroy 38 drones. This number has seen a market spike from the normal drone losses that we've seen within this category, considering that this number includes a decent amount of Shahed 136s, which were used to try and target cities like Kyiv. We saw none of those drones, at least during the last attack, succeed, except for, I believe, one, and I'm not really sure about that even. We then saw the largest number I believe we've seen in the war in this category of 51 cruise missiles being shot down by Ukrainian air defense over the past 24 hours. Of course, the Russians are starting to run out of missiles, and a large amount of these, from what we were able to understand, were X-101s, or maybe even a few Iskanders thrown in, and just a few calibers. But the Iskanders and calibers are beginning to become rare, at least from what we know, and at least from public missile reports. So we are getting a good idea that while this is a large amount of missiles, the reason why this number may be so high is because the Ukrainians were conducting a turkey shoot on older X-101 missiles that the Soviet Union would have used during the 1970s and 80s. We can also see that one anti-aircraft warfare system was destroyed. Once again, these are fairly rare to see destroyed, and are also far fewer in number than really any other piece of equipment within the Russian armed forces. And they average, and this is the average, so it could be well above or well below it, around $15 million per anti-aircraft warfare system. So that is a significant monetary loss and also equipment loss just in a single day in a single vehicle. And of course, we saw that the one Bobcat skid steer was destroyed as well. And Matthew always loves to see the Bobcat skid steers being destroyed. And y'all also...
I love to see it. I love to see it.
KJ put a corgi in a Bobcat. I love to see it. Hey, and a crispy one from Jessica. Nice, nice. Love to see it. And there we go. We only had 2 memes today about it, but hey, not bad. One Bobcat skid steer destroyed, and the rest y'all have seen. We're now going to be moving on from our Russian casualty report and on into...
Wait, what about yesterday's casualties?
Oh, we don't have yesterday's casualty, see?
Wait. Oh, they took the day off?
Yeah, they just took the day off. We'll go back and find it, because I'm sure a lot of people are curious about that. So let me go to the Kyiv Independence Twitter, and I wonder, Matthew, if I harassed them enough, will they block us? You know,
probably so. I mean, that's a reasonable response.
Maybe. I mean, you know, who knows? Who knows, really? But okay, so this is from May 30th, so that's today's casualty report. Let me go back to May 29th to get yesterday's casualty report. What? It looks a little stressed out right there. I wonder why. But let's scroll on a little bit further down. And here are the casualty reports for yesterday. We're just going to run through the numbers here because the situation was a little bit similar yesterday. And of course, 2 Bobcat skid steers were destroyed then. And we could see some memes about that as well.
Excellent, excellent. I love to see it.
And so, let's run over the numbers. 430 Russian troops were taken out yesterday. 11 APCs were taken out yesterday. It's almost within average. 15 supply trucks were taken out yesterday. 4 main battle tanks were taken out yesterday. 10 artillery systems, once again, were taken out yesterday. 20 total over the past 48 hours. 61 drones were shot down. A lot of those were Shaheds. 1 MLRS. 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and a special equipment vehicle. So yesterday they did have far better results in most categories. Most of them were falling within the war's averages, but today was a little bit of a decrease. And once again, they are conducting largely defensive battles, no longer offensive battles. So that's why we're seeing probably a decent decrease in Russian losses, at least for the time being. We're now going to be moving on from that casualty report and out of our location unknowns and on into the area of the Northeast. Over the past 48 hours, we have not really seen massive movements in the Northeast, which is nothing special, but once again, something to note. As you can see right here, over the past 48 hours, it appears that the front line, according to Deep State UA, has not moved. However, the 110th Brigade was able to destroy some Russian artillery in the area, which is an added plus, and of course, something that will certainly sell the Russians on leaving this area. We can see their truck right there, and also their artillery piece. We can actually see that they have 2 artillery pieces near this kind of destroyed truck, and we can see a Russian down there as well. The artillery hit the first artillery piece, and it appears to have destroyed it instantly. We can now see the Russians in the wide open as artillery continues to land on them, and it appears that it's causing great damage both to the Russian forces on the ground and the equipment that they brought in. Also, I'd like to ask, do we have no politics in the chat? I saw some people saying that certain groups support this and certain groups support that. I'm not really into getting into that stuff. All I care about is folks supporting Ukraine. And also, I don't want the American political bloodbath coming into the channel, because I know that some people are about to start getting real militant real quick as soon as the name of any group is brought up, whether it be one or the other. We can see the Russian artillery, well, actually Ukrainian artillery, continuing to land near the Russian position here on the very edge of this town, and we are assuming that this is somewhere in the area of Kupiansk and in between there and Kremenna. And so with that, that's the end of the clip. But once again, nice to see that the 110th Brigade was able to bombard Russian artillery and ensure that they were able to lose a couple of artillery pieces thanks to their effective counter battery. Moving on down into the area of Chernopipivka, we also saw more Russian artillery being destroyed, and it does appear that, based off the casualty report, this is where most of the Ukrainian counter battery appears to be succeeding, at least at the moment. And so here's the clip. We can see this small Ukrainian village, and we can also see a 2S1 SPG right there. You may not be able to tell that too well because it's covered with foliage, but it is under that mass of bushes, and we can see that the Ukrainian artillery is walking its way into hitting that SPG directly. We can see it's already hit the house that the crew may have been staying in. We can now see the crew is gone, it appears, and the SPG may be gone with it. Man, I gotta tell you, those Russians went up in a puff of smoke, literally. Call those guys Harry Houdini, because they're not coming back. So that we're now gonna be moving on. Or, better yet, we could call them, let's see, how do I put this joke in a good way? Nah, we'll skip on that one. That one's a little.
Did you forget the joke? Be honest.
No,
Did you forget it?
Well, actually, I'll give you the rough draft of the joke. Man, call those Russian soldiers your dad, because it appears they're never coming back. But that didn't really fit.
Okay.
Yeah, that didn't really fit. So I was like, you know what? We won't say that one, and then we'll move on. And then you go to me into saying it because you said, "Oh, you forgot it, didn't you?" I was like, "No, that one's just too spicy." I was like, "That's way too spicy." Anyways, we're now going to be moving on out of the northeast and on down into the Russian front lines, where we can see in the Bakhmut area, they're not doing that well, at least from what we've been able to see. Now, going over this area before we get into the frontline news, over the past 24 hours, we have seen that Russian forces have been pushed back a small bit in the city direction of Bakhmut, and also down here in the southern front as well. We can see a tiny movement where it appears that the Russians have once again retreated from the actual canal zone and into the tree line. It's a very small move. It's most likely about 10-20 yards. And I see a lot of people getting a laugh out of that joke. Listen, y'all, I wasn't going to say that one. That one was a little bit too, hardcore. And also, in case y'all are wondering, because some people may be wondering, why in the world can you come up with jokes like that, but you always do corny jokes? The reason why we do corny jokes is because there's something that everyone can kind of get a laugh at, and they're cheesy too, so you can kind of like get a laugh or a cringe out of it always. But those kind of jokes, it's really hard to get the color of them right, see, because, you can sometimes throw them out there and they're hilarious, but sometimes you can throw them out there and it's not that hilarious. It's just too spicy. So I generally try and avoid those jokes, and I also try and keep it a little PG. So that's why we don't do those kinds of jokes. That's why you get the corny jokes instead, but those jokes could be thrown out for hours. Matthew can tell you, off air, sometimes I have been known to throw out the very spicy joke on a good amount of occasions. But anyways.
Oh, I'm telling you, I get no respect.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. Oh, man, I'm telling you. It's really spicy. Oh, man. But anyways, we're now going to be moving into the Bakhmut front and near the area of Kuzminivka, where we saw a Ukrainian peon firing. I also had to mute this because it has some copyrighted music, but when you see them firing the peon here, and there it goes. Just to put in a sound effect for y'all right there.
What was that guy about to do? Twist his ankles?
I don't know, but this guy's got the sickest, sneakers on I've ever seen. Those things look like he's about to go play tennis in an hour.
Yeah, seriously. He's going to mess those up out there like that.
Yeah, dude, I like his fit, though. He's got the camo shirt, the nice shorts, and he's also got the sneakers. This man just came right off the tennis field. And I gotta say, I respect it a lot. Oh, well,
Man, they're playing a different type of tennis.
Man, they're playing a different type of tennis. Let's see. Let me. You know what? I'm trying to think of how spicy can the joke get. We're just going to avoid the spice this time. Yeah, we're going to avoid the spice that time. We're just going to move on to the next clip. And moving on further down the line and into the northern area of the Bakhmut flank, we saw a Ukrainian attack in this direction. Now, disclaimer, this is a fairly long video, if I remember this one correctly. It's around 8 minutes long. But we're going to watch the entire thing because we're soldiers, y'all. And we soldier through these videos. And so with that, here's the clip. There's almost nothing left. Work harder. Guys, where's the Baltic? I don't know. We are going to the circle. I'll take the big one. I'll take the small one. Move out! We can hear a firefight happening further down the tree line. And action has arrived. We now see him firing his M4 into the distance where the Russians are.
Man, where's the cover?
There is no cover in the fields.
Yeah, he said
Guys,
cover me, there's no cover.
We are moving! Sandra, let's go! Dude, Sandra is like the name you expect a car salesman to have. Imagine this guy coming up right out of the Chevy lot with an AK going, hello, would you like an APR on that? And just getting a couple of Russians. Honestly, man, I would respect that. I respect this anyways, but... F, we are going to land at 10 o'clock. And yes, Keyhall, this is live. At 10 o'clock, bliad. Bliad, what a bliad. We now hear the machine gunner firing. How? Me! I don't know what that's about.
Yeah.
Where's the enemy? At 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock at the landing. Where's the trench, bliad? Oh, that bullet just whizzed right
That was
over.
right over his head.
Guys, go forward. Hans, get up. Where? Oh, someone's called Hans. The Russian propagandists are going to have a field day. And I can already hear Volodymyr Solovyv Matthew saying it. And you know what he's about to say? Schutz! You know he's going to say it, man. He's going to... Dude, every time there's just the mention of a somewhat German-sounding name on the battlefield, Solovyv wakes up in a hot sweat from bed going, Schutz! His wife is like, sit down, honey, you're having a nightmare. Geschnick, my he starts going through his whole shtick.
Пішов.
Move out.
Сандра, пошли.
Sandra, let's go. Man, Sandra is slow. He needs to pick up the pace now. It's me. We now see them running to the next small tree line. Of course, you can see here in the plains, there really isn't much cover in the northern flank around the Bakhmut area. But you can see the cameraman moving forward past the rest of his squad towards this exposed dirt berm. And an artillery shell exploded nearby.
На.
And you hear someone saying, are you all alive? And he said, yes. Where are the bliaters? Bliat them. Who said that there was a trench? It's gone.
Хто там казав, розтяжка була? Вже нема.
I said that it's
Вже
gone.
нема, я розмінірував.
It's gone. I've demined it. Watch out for your feet.
Акуратно під ноги.
We can now see a Ukrainian soldier going past the dirt berm. Hans, where are you? Shoots! Go! Guys!
Хто?
I think we have 300. Who? I don't see.
У нас
We have
300,
300. Tell me. I think so.
300.
300. Who? Who is wounded, Bliad? Shell comes flying over. Who is 300, Bliad? Bliad.
Блять.
Он не слышит.
He can't hear. Блядь. Wow. I mean, you hear Russian artillery coming in overhead.
Hello?
Ого.
Это что?
What's that? Where's our artillery?
Где арта наша? Где поддержка?
Це що було?
What was that? Where's the artillery?
Где арта?
Де арта,
Where is the
блядь?
artillery, блядь? Where is the artillery? When you see the machine gunner laying down fire to the right side of the screen. We have to do it.
Где, блядь, арта нахуй?
The firefight continues on. Tankman, what's up? Air!
Танкістах чути прийом.
He said, what's up? And then he said, air.
Yeah. Are you all alive?
Всі цілі?
F, don't shop lid. Here. We now see these two guys running back.
Сюди.
Wait. Our guys are in the building. Wounded is ready to go to the first building. Our guys are dead. I'm alive. And an artillery shell explodes right when he says it. We can see the sun going down in the distance, and the firefight's about to continue on into the night. We can see the cameraman making it into a small trench works here. You now see him getting down as a shell explodes nearby. Where? Where are the guys? They're coming. Блядь, they're coming.
Где пацаны еще?
Виходять.
We now see them making it back to a Russian position that has already been captured. We can tell by the amount of trash in the area it was once a Russian position. We hear the artillery, the Russian artillery coming down on them. Blia, get deeper into the dugouts. Get deeper into the dugouts. Blia, I'm covered in mud.
В 20 метрах від мене.
I fell
впало.
20 meters from here. 20. Effing. Oh, I can't even read that off. Beep, beep. What?
Що?
Bliad. Pollock is tough. And when you see outside, the night is
Поле
coming.
тут пиздец, красавчик. Он воевал.
Pollock is bleeding off. Awesome. He was fighting. Is it Sonny?
Да,
Сонечко.
Yeah, Sonny.
А, это ж ты, братан.
Oh, it was you, bro. Bliad. We saw some close gunfire right there. It was a good fight. I'm coming. We now see him firing his rifle over the top of the dugout.
Иду!
I'll show you, Bliad.
Ты нахуй покажу, блядь. Труба РПГ где-то у вас?
Where's the RPG pipe? Don't hurry, bro.
RPG pipe.
Now I want to see all of those people out there, Matthew, who are like super into the buzzwords and stuff. I want them to take an airplane ticket and buy one to Ukraine and go find this guy and tell him it's not an RPG pipe, it's an RPG launcher. And see how what the
Yeah, see, when it
response-
comes down to survival, people don't use all those buzzwords. It's
Yeah.
simply like real elementary. Where's the RPG pipe?
dude.
Where's the bang bang stick?
I'd be spinning the block. I pull out my pipe. I almost fell and bent.
Замовилося.
Where is it?
Друже комендат цілий.
It's intact.
Єбашим.
Bled. We are staying here. We are collecting all the bullshit that's left. The batteries are dead.
На рации.
Everything is going to die.
Собираем БК, что осталось.
We're collecting bullshit that is left and staying here, Bled. And that's the end of the clip, but a little bit of a look at one of the firefights that was occurring in the northern direction, and very interesting to see it unfold almost in real time. With that, we're going to be moving on towards the city of Bakhmut now, and towards the direction of Yehidne, where we saw that a Russian mortar shell ended up getting stuck in a tree stump that was near to their trench, and did not explode. We can see it right there. They were very lucky. Again.
That's like some of that Acme type crap.
Well, speaking of Acme, you have not seen Acme until you watch this Ukrainian mortar right here. This Ukrainian mortar was operating some faulty ammo, and you can easily tell in the video. Actually, I'm going to rewind. so here we go.
Oh.
As you can see,
Okay.
it's some fairly faulty ammo.
Wow,
That
you really
one-
didn't react to it.
That one went off fine. This one? No. Oh my god. Next one? Nah.
Пизда.
Faulty ammo.
О, коли на цю цель наводиться, вони прямо в басейн летять.
Another one? That one works. And that's the end of the clip, but, you know, it seems as though both sides have been having some dodgy results every once in a while. Also, this is a fairly old video, by the way, because this was taken during the winter time, but we found it today, so it was included. But some fairly faulty ammo being used out there by both sides on the mortars. I mean, most of the stuff is Soviet era, so it's like from the 1960s and 70s, and sometimes the powder just goes bad. It gets a little bit of humidity in it, and it's just ruined. And so that's probably what's happening here in their faulty shells from an old stockpile. But anyways, getting beyond the mortar, why in the world did I say it like that? That was so
The
stupid.
mortar.
The mortar. Getting past the mortar fails, we saw another clip of Ukraine near the Bakhmut outskirts, and it appeared that they were only a few hundred yards away from a large amount of Khrushchevka blocks here to the northwestern side of the city, which we can see right here. And we can see visible battle damage to a large amount of them. And we see them panning back over it again. And that's the end of the clip, but really interesting to see the Ukrainian forces are that close to Bakhmut. Moving a little bit further behind the lines, we saw some Ukrainian forces moving up and saw a burned out Kirpi on the side of the road. This is a Turkish APC, a very nice looking one actually, and a really interesting APC, but sadly it appears that this one got caught in a bad situation. We can't see any visible, I guess you could say, puncture of the crew compartment, which is a good sign. However, it does appear that whatever hit it caused it to burn, and of course, fire, along with water, is one of the worst enemies of a military vehicle, and it ended up burning out the APC. But it does appear that while the APC was burned out, it continued to serve its function of saving the crew, as the crew compartment was not punctured and completely destroyed, probably giving the crew time to bail out and survive. But we can see this vehicle moving on through the muddy fields, and we can also see another destroyed little civilian car right there that the Ukrainians may have also been using. Well, that's the end of that clip, but once again showing the Ukrainians are taking losses, at least in the vehicle department, a little bit, but that APC did do its job and most likely allowed the crew to survive. We're now going to be moving on down to the southern flank, where we saw a message from Roman, who is a soldier that we have shown videos of before multiple times in the city, usually during the winter months, but here's the video. Guys like us must fight.
Українці,
Here's Ukrainian.
українці, ще круті українці.
Another cool Ukrainian.
От. Воюємо
Fighting against such Russian
замість
invaders
того, щоб жити нормальним
instead
життям.
of living our normal lives.
Жалюгідно, просто
That's so
жалюгідно.
pathetic. Man, this guy sat there, called a Russian prisoner, made fun of his drip, and then walked off. Absolute Chad. Absolute Chad. And also, what the hell is this guy wearing, man? This guy seriously looks like he's fighting in the Battle of Berlin in 1945. You know what? Let me pull up a
He
picture.
does.
Battle of Berlin, USSR, 1945. I know there's pictures of Russian soldiers from the Battle of Berlin. I just need to find one. Come on, we just need to find the one. Just need to find the one. Here we go. This picture right here. This man literally looks in this video like he just got off of this radio set and then walked through a door right into 2023. That is so bad. I don't even know why. Like, you know, textiles aren't that hard to make. That's the thing. It shouldn't be that difficult to give them modern looking equipment. Yet every time we see them, it looks like they came straight out of like one of the previous eras of history. It's unbelievably insane. And also, it's a stark contrast in between him and Roman here in this clip, where you can see him in modern gear, obviously looking like a 21st century soldier. I think you look at this guy and it looks like he's from the early 20th century, probably even fighting in the Great War, who knows. But anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from that little clip in the southern flank and moving on into our next one, which was from yesterday, where we saw that the 92nd, which is a sister unit to the fighting 93rd, got a little mascot called Fugus. And we can see him right here. And look at him. He's cute.
Oh, why'd they call him that, though?
I don't know, man. I guess they could never find his mother, so they just called him a... I'm not saying... Y'all fill in that blank? I know y'all can. But I love that little puppy. That's a cute puppy. I like it. It kind of looks like a Swedish Valhund a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. The floppy ears are kind of close.
Kind of close. But I like they gave it a vest and everything. And it's a very cute little puppy. I really like it. And a very good mascot for the 92nd Brigade. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this dog. Watch out for your mothers, because if that thing's around, it might just, anyways, with that, we're going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on down towards the Andriivka area, where we saw that the 3rd Brigade was able to conduct a successful push. Accompanied with Chad music. We can see the Ukrainian APCs moving forward in a mass wave supported by Ukrainian tanks, and of course in the typical tactic, the APCs race forward and then they'll unload the infantry right on the tree line. We can also see that this Ukrainian tank right here, interestingly enough, had taken a direct hit to its front right turret cheek, and it appears that the fire is continuing to burn on something flammable on the exterior of the turret, and yet the tank was completely unfazed and blasted off a round into the trench, most likely where it was hit from. We can now see the tanks continuing to move forward, blasting the trenches at point-blank range, and making sure that the Russian infantry that those Ukrainians will be dismounting practically on top of will be gone before they even have to fight them. We can now see the BMP as usual, and we've seen these kinds of videos multiple times. We're actually getting a fairly good idea of how the 3rd Brigade operates in battle. They support the APCs with tanks, blasting the trench line, keeping the Russians' heads down. These APCs roll up within literal yards of the trenches, firing into them as well, and at the same time they dismount their infantry, and the infantry continue on the fight as the APCs then withdraw to a safer distance. Also, we can see another APC over here, but we haven't really been able to get a good look at what that one is. We can also see the Ukrainians are whipping out some RPGs and starting to pepper the Russian trenches as well.
And the fellows aren't playing.
They aren't playing, and I don't know what kind of APC that was. It looks like a YPR 765, but not really sure. We can now see them continuing to hit the Russian trench. We can see some Russian soldiers frantically moving around in there and trying to figure out what to do. And now they figured out it's the best thing to do is to just run away. And we can now see the Russian forces in the southern flank once again completely routing from their positions and giving them up to the Ukrainian army.
Oh, they're done for.
Oh, they're done for. You know it. The Ukrainians are going to mercilessly bombard these guys like we could see right here. And it appears that a couple of guys may be napping there. We can now see the YPR and the BMP advancing forward into another tree line. And it appears that they may be picking up the Ukrainian soldiers after a successful firefight. And that's exactly what they're doing. You now see the Ukrainian squad moving along the length of the tree line and to the BMP and the YPR, and they're getting ready to leave the area. With that, that's the end of the clip, and we can see once again another incredibly successful push by the Ukrainian 3rd Brigade, once again clearing more Russian lines and claiming more territory in the southern flank for the Ukrainian army. We're now going to be moving on down into the area of Donetsk, where we also saw the Ukrainians hitting the Russians in this direction. Bliet. They can't see what the Blieters are. Here are the Blieters. Here are the Blieters. Here are the Blieters. Dang, that's a lot of them, man. That's a lot of Blieters. Here they are. They don't live. And this is their place of dislocation.
He said, here they are, they don't live.
He's prophesizing, man. He's like, here they are, they shall live no longer. And we now see them lining up the shells. We can see Russians scurrying around everywhere like it's an ant nest. And we can see them putting a big red X on that, which tells us it'll be gone soon. Further, good, well done. Now we will work all according to plan. And, of course, the boys on Discord are getting to work here, and they're about to start laying down the artillery. And if anything, we'll move. Music plays. Boom, 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 boom. We can now see them loading up an SPG-9 and getting ready to fire. We are ready. Ready, watch out. Back blast, bleep. And now the round's on its way. It hits right there, and a couple of Russians just got squashed. We can now see them firing some mortars as well in that direction. We can see them getting the SPG-9 ready again. Watch out, watch out. Fire! And we can see another round hitting. In case y'all are wondering, that SPG-9 actually makes that sound after it fires. It makes this little high-pitched ringing, so that's what it's supposed to be. We're going to stop that now. This is even annoying me. But we can see the guy getting on the radio. They're hearing it. They're gone. The Russians are gone. And they're getting ready to pack up their artillery, the mortars, the SPG-9s, and get ready to move. GoPro, stop the video. And so with that, that's the end of the clip, but another successful attack by the Ukrainian army in the area, and of course making sure that a couple of more Russians won't be fighting this war any longer. We're now going to be moving on to a VOG that landed very close to a Russian. We can see the Russian wandering around this path, kind of limping. Oh, goodness.
He's limping, all right.
Oh, he's limping. I don't think the VA will cover that for him. But anyways, we're going to be moving on from that clip. We can see right there, he didn't do too well. And we're now going to be moving on down into the area of Volodar, where we also saw the Ukrainians in the 72nd Brigade firing a Stugna at the Russians.
Done!
And it appears, Matthew, that they put this on the Vine. Rip Vine. Vine was better than TikTok. We can see a Russian APC out there in the distance. We can see the Stugna being lined up onto it and firing.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah! And that's the end of the clip. And great to see the guy.
Wait a minute, what was he freaking out about at the end?
I don't know.
Well, you wanted a replay or something?
I guess. I don't know. But anyways, that's the end of the clip. Don't know what that last part was, but hey, that was a pretty good video nonetheless. We're now going to be moving all the way down the southern front towards Rika, where we also saw the Russians hitting the Ukrainian positions. And it doesn't appear that they were hitting him too well, because the cameraman survived. But they were being hit by 220mm MLRSs from a MLRS, I believe, called a Hurricane, if the caption is correct. Yep, is a Hurricane. So with that, here's the clip. We can see the MLRS rockets landing nearby. We can see the cameraman getting down a little. We see the rockets exploding very close nearby. Yet none of them were accurate enough to really do damage, as we can see right there. And so with that, that's the end of that clip. You know, Russians and their accuracy, you know, but they miss more than stormtroopers. I gotta be honest with you. I wouldn't count on them to shoot the broadside of a barn. If I was honest with you, I'm trying so hard since I dropped one spicy joke to avoid spicy jokes tonight. So I'm trying to come up with more PG and cheesy things. But we're now going to be moving on down to Novikakhovka, where we saw a confirmation of a very important vehicle being destroyed. In this tiny little picture right here, now enlarged, you're looking at the back of a square vehicle. This thing honestly looks like a container box you would see on a cargo ship, but this isn't any normal box. No, this is actually the command unit of an S-400 battery. There are only one of these per S-400 battery, and much like a Patriot missile defense system, this is one of the more critical vehicles that you can lose in a S-400's battery. Beyond, I guess you could say, I believe it's the radar vehicle as well. There's a command vehicle and a radar vehicle, and those are usually the most important vehicles that you can have inside of these, I guess you could say, Russian anti-air defense batteries. And we can see right here that their command vehicle has clearly been destroyed. And also here's a picture of one intact before it got blown to pieces. So we were able to confirm that somewhere in the Kherson area recently, Ukrainian forces were able to find the command vehicle of an S-400 battery, target it, and successfully destroy it, meaning that an entire S-400 battery may have been out of action for days until they were able to requisition or acquire another S-400 command vehicle or have a living command staff to operate them with. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news from the southern front, And we're now going to be moving across the Dnipro River, all the way up Ukraine, and to the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And so, without further ado, here is the speech from today, the 30th of May, which is one of the last days in this month. Tomorrow will actually be the final day of May. And so with that, here's the speech. Speech!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Короткий звіт за цей день. Доволі гучний день. Перше, дякую нашим повітряним силам та усім захисникам і захисницям неба за відбиття чергового нічного нальоту російських дронів. Знову і знову дякую нашим воїнам за кожен збитий шахет, за кожну збиту російську ракету. Бо це завжди врятовані життя людей, завжди врятована інфраструктура. Друге, на жаль, були влучання і, на жаль, були падіння уламків із відповідними наслідками, на жаль, були втрати. Мої співчуття. Дуже і дуже важливо зважати на повітряну тривогу та не ставитись до неї легковажно. І хочу, щоб мене зараз почули всі представники місцевої влади, які відповідають за конкретні громади, за конкретну територію. Укриття у містах мають бути доступними. Люди мають розуміти, коли і як збільшиться кількість та доступність укриттів. Це відповідальність конкретних посадовців і конкретна відповідальність. Третє. Продовжуємо консолідацію партнерів для того, щоб українська ППО стала максимально ефективною. Російський терор має програвати щодня і щоночі в кожному нашому регіоні, в небі кожного українського міста і села. Коли будь-який напад російських терористів буде завершуватись провалом для терористів. Їхні поразки стануть джерелом нашої безпеки довгострокової. Говорив сьогодні з канцлером Німеччини Шольцом, зокрема про ППО. Подякував за вже надані Україні системи ППО, тобто за вже врятовані Німеччиною життя наших людей. Обговорили і в цілому оборонну ситуацію, нашу безпекову співпрацю. Перед важливими міжнародними заходами, що відбудуться вже дуже скоро, виходимо на спільні позиції, на спільні рішення. Я дякую Олафу, пану канцлеру, за його особисту рішучість, яка багато в чому стає рішучістю всієї Європи. Четверте, говорив з представниками потужної британської оборонної компанії Bae Systems. Це дійсно масштабний виробник зброї, тієї зброї, яка нам необхідна зараз та яка буде необхідною нам і надалі для гарантування безпеки нашої держави та усього регіону. Працюємо над створенням в Україні відповідної бази для виробництва і ремонту. Йдеться про широкий спектр зброї від танків до артилерії. Ми забезпечимо Україні, а отже всій Європі, такий новий фундамент міцності. П'яте. Зустрівся сьогодні з делегацією одного із провідних світових аналітичних центрів Американської Атлантичної Ради. Хороша, корисна розмова для захисту наших спільних цінностей усіх в світі, хто цінує свободу. Поінформував представників Атлантичної Ради про наші основні оборонні потреби станом на зараз, на цей час в протистоянні. Ми обговорили кроки, що наближають створення нової авіаційної коаліції. Ми незмінно наближаємось до цього результату, до утримання нашими воїнами сучасних винищувачів. Я дякую усьому народу Сполучених Штатів, кожному і кожній в політичній спільноті, хто нас підтримує. І дякую особисто президенту Байдену, обом партіям Конгресу. Зараз саме в Україні, на нашій землі, у нашому небі вирішується, чи збережуть свобода і цивілізованість глобальне лідерство в цьому столітті. Вирішується нами. Нами. Разом з Америкою, разом з Європою, разом з усіма нашими союзниками і партнерами. Дякую усім в світі, хто допомагає. І, звичайно, сьогодні, як і завжди, я дякую нашим воїнам, усім, хто зараз в бою заради України, усім, хто на бойових завданнях, на бойових постах, Авдіївський напрямок, Бахмут, Мар'їнка, Шахтарський напрямок. Дякую усім, хто захищає наші позиції на Луганщині та на Харківщині. Дякую кожному і кожній, хто захищає Запоріжжя, Херсонщину. Дякую всім, хто тримає силу нашого кордону. Наші бригади, які воюють, наші бригади, які готові йти вперед. Наша розвідка, наші сили безпеки на всіх напрямках та на всіх рівнях ворог повинен відчути, що Україна зміцніла. Слава нашим героям! Слава Україні!
And with that, Slava Ukraini. And that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on the 461st day of the news of the war in Ukraine. And of course, it's been amazing so far, but what's even more amazing, what's even more interesting, is the kind of answers that y'all have given to some of the polls and questions that Matthew has asked all of y'all tonight. And so let's get into that, Matthew. Let's hear what they've been saying.
All right, so moving into our first poll, it says the U.S. predicts that Sweden will be admitted into NATO in a few weeks, and Turkey is likely to give in. And what are your thoughts? 72% said it sounds highly likely, 13% said unsure, 13% said it's just hopeful talk, and 3% said it sounds very unlikely. And on this one, I'm actually going to fall within the 72%. I think now that Erdogan has won his re-election in Turkey, there could be some wiggle room on Sweden, and it sounds like some backdoor negotiations have probably had some success, and the U.S. has an indication that it's going to go through. And that's very good because Sweden has been trying to get into NATO for a long time now. Finland's already gotten in, and Sweden has to come next. So, Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be honest. I think that they're probably going to be going into NATO fairly soon, and Turkey probably won't continue to contradict the rest of NATO and say no. It may have been the case that Erdogan was doing that to try and keep his because, to go into Turkish politics real quick and probably explain the motivator behind the decision-making process before the election, the idea that Erdogan was most likely following through with is that his base is very religious as far as religious groups and, well, religious parties in Turkey kind of go. And so he may have been trying to gain popularity with his base by saying that there was a problem with the Swedes, although it really wasn't a problem. It's a very minor thing. Because, hell, I think there's probably an example of what happened in Sweden happening in every single country in NATO, or really every country in the world, really. So I'm sure they could really have a problem with anyone and everyone that they wanted to. But that was probably a bid to try and gain some popularity in Turkey during this election. But now that that election's over and Erdogan will most likely secure his seat as president for the next 4 years, it may be the case that he will now allow Sweden to enter, considering that this will probably be his last term in office. Not saying that it will be. He has been there for, I believe, around 12 years, 8 years at this point. But Erdogan, and let me type him in real quick. Erdogan is getting, from what I understand, a little old. He's 69, years old. And that means that he's getting on towards the older age. And now I know that a lot of you in the United States have gotten used to our presidents being, like 1,000 years old or something like that. I don't know why. But over in other countries, for example, in Turkey, if we look at the average life expectancy, Turkey, it's 75 years old. And
I expect to live a long time.
Well, yeah, they live a pretty long time. I will admit they live a pretty long time. However, he's getting on towards being one of the older people in Turkey. He's just about 5 years younger than the average at this point, and so I'm pretty sure that we will probably see that he will most likely be attempting to retire by the end of this next 4-year term is over, because he'll be about as old as the average Turk lives at that point. He'll be around 74 or 75 years old, so he'll probably not run for another term. At least that's what I would assume. One thing that's very interesting about this graph, though, as a side note, is that you can actually see when the Syrian civil war started, because their life expectancy drops from 73 years all the way down to 63 years. At the height of the Syrian civil war, kind of showing you how many people died during just the first opening years of the Syrian civil war. And it appears that even the pestilence that affected the world over the past 2 years actually didn't have any effect on their life expectancy. It actually continued to rise when it appears that everyone else's numbers in the world for life expectancy was actually dropping. So that tells you how bad things were going for the Syrians in the Syrian civil war. And it also shows how it's kind of dying down in intensity over the years, considering that their life expectancy isn't continuing to stay low. It's actually starting to climb again. It's a bit of a side note about what's going on down there, just from the life expectancy chart. Something really interesting to see. Nonetheless, though, that's probably the reason why the Turks did that, probably why Erdogan decided to do that before the election, and I'm sure that he'll relent now and allow the Swedes to enter NATO. That would be the strategically viable option going forward, to have Sweden as a NATO member, so I'm sure that he sees that, I'm sure he knows that, and he will not oppose it anymore for that reason. And so with that, hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next poll says the UK foreign minister says that Ukraine has the right to project force beyond its own borders, and what are your thoughts? 86% said he's right and Ukraine does have that right. 4% said unsure. 7% said I'm divided on the issue. And 3% said he's wrong. Ukraine has no right. And in my view, if Ukraine has the ability to strike inside of Russia, then by default, they have that right. Now, it's a whole nother question as to whether or not that's smart to do. That would be a question of strategy. But as to the question at hand, I would say yes, they do have the right. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say they do have the ability to exert influence or actions outside of their country, especially inside of Russia. But once again, they kind of have to fall within the realm of legality. Because, much like the Russians didn't have the ability to illegally invade Ukraine, Ukraine wouldn't really have the ability to, say, illegally invade or violate the sovereignty of neighboring countries like Belarus. So I would say yes to that, but as long as it's within the realm of international law. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next poll says Russia issues an arrest warrant for a U.S. senator, and the senator then says that the Ukrainian offensive is going to start in a few days. And what are your thoughts? 41% said the offensive is coming in a few days. 39% said it's totally meaningless. 11% said unsure, and 9% said the senator is just mad about the warrant. And the senator was definitely mad about the warrant. I will say that. Definitely upset. I don't really know why, because it's not really like it has any real meaning behind it. But apparently it pissed him off. I will say that the offensive probably is coming in a few days. If he said that, he did say that Russia is going to be taught a lesson. So, some of that is probably just being angry, and some of it's probably some truth mixed in there a little bit as well. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, he went over there, he got an arrest warrant, he said, oh, and by the way, y'all gonna get y'all's asses kicked here in a minute.
That accent, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he sounds like, too. But that's honestly, it sounds like he got angry about it. It may be true that it may be starting in a few days, and he may have gotten so pissed off, he's like, That may have been the whole point he said that. It's like, oh, by the way, you may have given a warrant out for me, but y'all are about to get your butts beat in this offensive here in a few days. But if it does happen, that's great. Also, we make, and really quickly, because I know that some of y'all know who the specific senator in question is. We do not get into politics here. If there is anyone outside the United States, regardless, and I'll give you all an example of how we go about foreign representatives visiting other countries. One, we don't actually give any, unless it was the Taiwan situation, that was the only exception we gave. We don't give any news coverage to officials who travel to the United States, whether they be representatives, senators, the speaker, a Supreme Court justice, although that's never happened, or the president. We never give them any coverage, and also we only address them as their title, the president, a senator, or a representative. Regardless of what political affiliation they stand for, they are a representative of the entire United States of America, all 350 million of us. And so we back up in a U.S. representative that travels abroad, regardless whether it be to Ukraine or Taiwan. And last year, I remember during the Taiwanese situation, the Speaker of the House, along with a delegation of representatives, it was a bipartisan delegation, was on their way to Taiwan, and someone who was in our live chat actually asked me if I would be happy with that plane being shot down, because, well, actually, if I would laugh or cheer on a plane being shot down with the Speaker of the House on it. And regardless, and I believe this should be true for everyone, regardless of what party or what affiliation any representative or politician stands for in this country, they represent each and every single one of us when they travel abroad. Now, of course, everyone can agree and to disagree on whatever they want inside of this country, but when one of our people go abroad, nobody needs to be hoping and praying that our enemies do harm unto them, because that means that they're doing harm unto 350 million of us and spitting in all of our faces. So, just to put that out there, I support the senator that went over there completely. Don't care about his political affiliation. He is representing the United States of America, and I think that was a stupid thing for the Russians to put a warrant out on him, and I'm sure that regardless, they will get their asses beat anyways, much like the senator said. And so with that, hope that does address that fairly well. And also, once again, I would hope that none of y'all go into politics. We do have a rule against politics. Of course, there's a time and a place, and this channel really isn't the time or the place to talk about American politics. If you want to talk about that, there are millions of places. Pretty much everywhere but this channel is a place that you can talk about politics, whether you like the politics they're talking about or not. But we like to stay centrally focused on supporting Ukraine here, and that comes first and foremost. So regardless of your political affiliation or what you think about other people, as long as you support Ukraine, that's really all we want to focus and talk about. But with that, hope we address that.
Do you know what the senator really did? The equivalent of
What?
He basically did a 3 more days, Papa.
Yeah, he did. He was like, dude, he sat there and got that arrest warrant, and you heard Lacrimosa start playing in the background, and he said, I'm going to show y'all what 3 more days looks like.
Why does it sound like Cleveland Brown off of Family Guy?
I don't know. I really don't know. Oh, man. And also, Mark, you are correct. I am getting into politics, but that is a little ways down the road. And I always think that there is a time and place to talk politics. I don't think news people who say they cover the news should have a political stand, because what is it then? Is it news, or is it just your take on stuff? So I think that news should be completely unbiased in a political standing and just represent information as it is. The only bias that we've ever made on this channel, and it's because I have folks over there, and it's the only bias I'll ever take, is that we are pro-Ukrainian. Because I have a Ukrainian friend over there, and we have a lot of Ukrainians that watch this channel, and a lot of Ukrainians I've come to know and meet, and they are on the right side of this war as well. But that's the only bias we have on this channel. But with that, hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next poll says North Korea launched ballistic missile with its very first spy satellite on board. It blew up and failed. And what are your thoughts? 60% said LOL, say it ain't so, that's pathetic. 3% said unsure. 5% said it was only a test run. And 31% said North Korea will try again. And I am definitely with the 60%. They definitely set off a panic earlier today when they did that, but it ended up blowing up and failing, and they admitted that themselves on their own state TV. So in other words, North Korea is about to wipe out their science department completely. But Enforcer, what say you?
And also, real quick, I'm sorry, Mark, I didn't know you were joking there, because he said I was joking. I thought you were being serious. I was like, we were very serious. I went through the whole spiel. Sorry about that. But they had to admit it, Matthew. You know why? Because they literally had every single person out in the street, and they said, Look up in the sky. They had all of them watching under the threat of death. And so when they sat there, we were like, oh, look, it's going up. And then it turned into the sun. It turned into the second sun for like 5 seconds. They were like, how do we tell them that that failed? Just tell them, I guess. Just tell them the truth. It blew up. And, the South Koreans and the Japanese are probably sitting there in the control rooms. So they're going, oh, my God, this is oh. It just blew up. Okay, well, that's not our problem anymore. But man, North Korea, Kim Jong-un is about to sit there, Matthew, in that little mansion that's somewhere over here, actually. It's like in this direction. He's about to sit there eating like the only food in North Korea that's actually real food. And he's about to sit there and tell his starving generals, take your AKs and go into the science department. Or the rocketry division, and execute everybody publicly. Just go out there.
Like, seriously, they probably will. No joke.
Oh, they probably will. They'll probably have everybody execute. In fact, I wouldn't doubt it that they'll probably just cancel. They'll probably go and even execute the students that are learning in the North Korean universities about rocketry. They're probably going to go wipe everyone off the board. Because that's the way the North Koreans operate. And also, what's funny about this whole thing is that they were probably banking on that for a big propaganda effect to moralize, to boost morale in the public's eye in North Korea, because if y'all don't know, they are going through another famine right now, kind of like the Great Famine of the early 90s. They're going through it again, largely due to the plague, and when they shut down their borders, they also completely cut off, which was a very stupid decision on their end, all of the food imports they were getting from China. So they have had no food for several years now, and while their situation is kind of recovering a little bit, from what we understand, and from a lot of defectors who have left recently, they are saying that they are going through a almost absolute famine, similar to the one they had in the 90s. So they were probably hoping on that to give the public a little bit of some higher spirits, that at least the nation succeeded in something, but instead they got to watch this missile blow up over the country of North Korea. So, hey, not that bad. Anyways, with that,
they did say they were going to try again, though. I don't know if I believe that or not, but some folks think that was just a test run. I don't see any proof of that, but it's possible that that wasn't the actual missile carrying the spy satellite. But officially, they say it did, so I'm not really sure.
I'm going to be honest. I think that probably had the satellite on it because, think about it. They're ones for propaganda. Why the hell would they hype that up to their citizenry and the whole world and say, oh, we're launching our satellite, and then it blows up, and then for some reason it wasn't on it.
I will admit, though, it seems a little odd, though, that they would launch the missile with the satellite on it the first time, considering that they haven't really had much success with their ballistic missiles. So it's possible it wasn't on there, but I'm kind of on the fence about that.
Now, I would say, and a lot of people have been saying, oh, come on, y'all, and I've seen this in the live chat, and this is a fair statement. Oh, come on, y'all, like, SpaceX has had 1 million rockets blow up, and they still succeed. And that's true, but SpaceX is SpaceX, and SpaceX has had a lot of experience in the industry and has a lot of experienced engineers and techs that work in their teams that, of course, know that there is failure that's going to be planned along the way. But however, with North Korea, they're not really a country that plans on failure. It just has to succeed. Even if it's an illogical attempt at success, they must succeed. And so I would believe...
And resources are short, too.
Yeah, and resources are short, too. It's not really like they're the United States that just has the ability to produce literally 30 starships and then just blow them all up one after the other. North Korea only probably has enough resources to maybe make one rocket, maybe a second one if they're pushing it. And so having only one, they probably did load the satellite up onto it due to resource shortages and also the expectation that regardless of what the rest of the world does rocketry-wise, that rocket must succeed the first time it's launched. And so they probably just lost out on the only satellite they had. It probably took them like 30 years of scamming people saying that they're the IRS to make that kind of money to build that missile, and they just missed out on it. So they'll probably try again in another few years and probably load up another satellite on it to have it blow up again. And they'll be completely amiss as to why the rockets are blowing up, although that's kind of a normal part of the development process. But with that, hope that does address that fairly well. And speaking of which, I've got to tell y'all, that was unbelievable. And this was a while ago, but that was unbelievable to see how wildly successful the first full launch of the Starship was and how far it made it. Because if y'all didn't know, that first test with the entire completed Starship assembled, it was only supposed to make it off the pad a little bit. It wasn't even expected to really make it off the pad. It was supposed to just stay on the pad. And yet it lifted off and it actually traveled, I believe, all the way up into like the stratosphere or something before it exploded. So it was a wildly successful test. And I'm sure that that gave them a great leap forward. And the next time they launch one of those, we may be getting very close to seeing a suborbital launch or maybe even an orbital test flight. Although that's going to really be pushing it for another flight after that one. But still, very impressive nonetheless. Speaking in the world of rocketry. But with that, hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our last poll says, after the North Korean launch, South Korea sounded a wartime alert and warned of evacuation in Seoul, and was this an overreaction? It looks like 47% said no, they took appropriate action, 24% said, it's kind of hard to tell right now, 9% said unsure, and 20% said, yes, they overreacted badly. And I'm going to fall within the 20%. And actually, South Korea admitted themselves that they overreacted. The wartime alert was sent out to all the cell phones around, I think it was the entirety of South Korea, warning that they might have to evacuate shortly and telling people basically to take cover and hide. They admitted they prematurely did that, and it does seem a little premature because there was no evidence that the missile was heading towards South Korea. So it looks like somebody might have panicked there. Also in Japan, they issued a J alert, which was telling folks to hide as well because they thought debris was going to come down from that missile that inevitably exploded in the sea. So they did overreact, and I'm sure that they're going to look into that as to why that happened, but kind of concerning and interesting at the same time. But Enforcer, what say you?
You know, that J alert thing, Matthew, you know how the alert sounds?
That obnoxious little like earthquake sound?
Yeah, it's the sound. I honestly, man, that's got to be one of the most annoying EAS system sounds in the world. Like, the Japanese do so good on everything, but that one sound, it's like, you could have come up with something better than that, man. Like, it's not even like, it doesn't even make you feel compelled to do anything. It's like, oh, it's like the microwave is ready. Like, it's heated up, whatever in it, it's time to get it or something like that. But yes, I would say that they overreacted. Getting off that funny note and onto a serious note, I would say that they have overreacted significantly, considering that it was not a ballistic missile. You know, well, at least its objective was not to be a ballistic missile. It was to be a missile launching a satellite into orbit it does seem that they did overreact, at least in my opinion. And considering that the government of South Korea has come out and stated that they did overreact, it does show that they even believe it was an overreaction as well, because they gave the North Koreans a little bit too much credit for what they're capable of, really. But with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And also, if y'all don't know what I'm talking about, let me pull up on my second screen here the Japan EAS system sound, and let me let y'all listen to it, so that way y'all know what I'm talking about. J alert sound. Alright, so here is the Japanese EAS alarm right here. That's it. That's literally it. I gotta be honest with y'all, that's like the most annoying EAS sound ever.
They probably spend millions coming up with that sound.
Now, let me give y'all the good old USA's EAS alert alarm, which sounds like the goblins are gonna come and eat your soul in a minute. Now that's
oh man, I hate this one.
I love that.
I cannot stand that. It's ominous, actually.
Yeah, it gets you scared. It gets you ready for like Armageddon.
Also, by the way, that was simply a test. That was not a real alert.
Yeah, that was not a real.
In case that violates any rules or anything.
Well, it shouldn't be. I mean, you know, this guy uploaded it onto YouTube, so I don't feel like that should be in violation of anything. We're not playing it as a real alert. We're just letting y'all hear the sound. So just keep that in mind. Don't be freaked out or anything. But that's the US's EAS. That's what we're used to. I'm used to being scared to death whenever a tornado pops up in the area. It sounds like we're about to die, and I think that's what they should be getting across: is that you're in threat of death. Go hide or something. But anyways, let's see. Oh, I was reading that.
Everyone's saying things get real when you hear that one.
Oh,
it really does. Like I have some. That's like ingrained into our heads from like childhood. That sound.
Oh man, and you know, remember Matthew, we'd be like, when we were kids, we would watch like the older cartoons, like the Flintstones and stuff. You'd be watching the Flintstones, and you'd be like, well, my it's like, oh my god, we're about to die. Like that one actually gets you scared. It gets you like wanting to do stuff, like hide, like in a basement. You know, like the Japanese
and also,
one.
And also, real quick, to answer Mitchell Betty's question, he said, don't do that. That's illegal. That's on broadcast television and not on YouTube.
Yeah, and anyways, also the disclaimer was that we're just playing the noise. We're not like making a fake warning or anything like that. So just making that clear again. But that thing scares the hell out of me. And also, I gotta be honest with y'all, I just don't like the Japanese one. One, because the pitch is annoying, and two, it doesn't even really scare you or anything. It's like trying to wake you up out of bed really gently. And I get that, you know, the Japanese are of course a culturally very polite people, but if you're in like an emergency or something, you don't need to politely be getting people up. You need to be going, you know, get up, you're dying. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and we are fresh out of polls, so we are moving back into our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have another very generous one from Mark, General of the LSA, who puts in a $111 Super Chat. And this time he says, I'm 1/6 evil, and I'm increasing trending to good. Is this a concern for the LSA? It's also a lie.
What? So, well, thank you for the support, Mark. General of the LSA. Of course, I have to make sure to put that out. And only 1/6 evil, Matthew. 111 Canadian. That is only 1/6 evil, by the way. But if we add that to what he had earlier, that means he is half evil tonight, Matthew.
That is true, but I'm not good with math.
Well, I'm not either, but somehow I did that by miracle. I added that by miracle. And so, let's see, I'm increasingly trending to good. Is this a concern for the LSA? It's also a lie. If that is a lie, I would honestly say, I think, Mark, however you are, considering that you are the heavy hitter so far on the fundraiser nights, I think everyone will be fine with it, regardless, whether you are good or evil, or even trending towards good or trending towards more evil. I think everyone will be fine with it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, Mark. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. Only being half evil tonight. Only half. It's like whole milk or something similar. And so that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Brian's Thailand, who puts in a very generous $57 Super Chat. And thank you very much, Brian, for that support. He says, keep up the great work, guys, and LSA.
And thank you for enjoying our good work, Brian. We will keep it up, and thank you so much for supporting this channel and appreciating it, so that way we can make it possible. And thank you once again for being a member of the LSA. I saw someone ask in our comment section, what does it take to be a member of the LSA? All it takes is you saying that you're a member of the LSA to be one. There's no such thing as a membership fee to the LSA. It's absolutely free. The premise of this channel is free. You can watch without watching an ad, without watching a sponsor. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to pay for a membership in our live chat that gives you tacky little colors and also, you know, kind of like useless emojis. You don't even have to pay for that. You don't get harassed when you get on the stream either about that stuff either. We have completely removed everything. It is completely free to watch for anyone who wants to watch it. But if you ever are compelled to support us, you always can. And that's always something funny to me, Matthew, is whenever haters, you know, sit there and say, you know, they get so much support. It's like, we're not like forcing anyone to do that. It's like, you know, that's completely a voluntary thing. It's like, you know, we could be like, you know, we could always, you know, have memberships. We could have sponsors. We could be trying to get sponsored. We could have ads. You know, it's like, we have stripped this thing bare pretty much. If you want to support it, you can. Otherwise, there's nothing that supports this channel. But still, thank you once again for support, Brian. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a very generous $50 super chat once again from none other than BC Skyman. And thank you very much, BC, for the second support of the night. He says, Putin is frustrated that he can't defeat Ukraine with his military, so he's repeating exactly what Hitler did to Britain in the 40s. Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraine. And I thank you so much for the support, BC Skyman. I completely agree. Pretty much getting so aggravated that he's just trying to bomb out the Ukrainians like they did the Brits in the Blitz, and it's not working. And even now it's really not working because they're shooting down almost everything they send at them. But it's kind of funny. It's almost laughable to really think about it that way. It's the same response. They can't really win, so he just starts bombing them. That's wild, really, when you think about it like that. And also, what's really cool is that if we go to the town of Exeter, you can even see today the remains of the bombings that occurred on Exeter, you see, because Exeter was not a strategic town at the time, and it never really was in the modern world. The reason why the city was targeted is because it showed up in a magazine that Hitler actually had of Britain. It was a travel guide, and in it, it said, here are the 10 most beautiful cities to visit in England. And he sat there and told Goering, who was in charge of the Luftwaffe, he said, I want these 10 cities bombed. And the whole reason that Exeter was bombed was because it was on that list. If it wasn't on that list, it most likely would have survived completely intact throughout the war. But if you drop down into the city streets of Exeter, you can see the remains of where some of the city have been bombed. And you can tell that by where there is a modern building mixed into old ones. Like, for example, here on this street, you can see this older building down here. See this older building right here, and in the middle there was probably a fairly similar building before the war, and a bomb fell right into the middle of it and destroyed the entire thing, so then it was rebuilt to a post-war architectural standard afterwards. So you can see a lot of that around Exeter. You can see a lot of that around many of the cities that were bombed during the Blitz. And while they did rebuild and they're fine now, you can clearly tell, you can visibly see the after effects of the Blitz on cities like Exeter, even till this day. But something fairly interesting to know, and I would certainly agree with you, BC Skyman, they're doing the exact same thing now that they're failing in the war. And they've been doing that ever since the first sign of resistance in the first few months. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for the support, BC Skyman, being a Lee Spring Army legend. And of course, helping this channel to keep on running as well. And so with that, thank you so much. Once again, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Cindy Mitchell, who puts in a very generous $50 super chat. Hey. And thank you very much, Cindy, for the support. She says, Tucker and Nana are decoristist. What is a sapper? And Tuck and I talked about this, and back to you, Matt.
And I thank you so much for the support, Cindy Mitchell. And a sapper is kind of similar to a sucker. You see, I'm just kidding. A sapper is different than a sucker. You see, a sapper is a guy whose job in the army is to go around and look for bombs in the ground, or bombs really anywhere. If they're, like, really, it doesn't even matter if it's in the ground. If there is a bomb somewhere that has not blown up, and it is clearly a bomb of some kind, it is his job to go out there and make sure the bomb won't blow up, and to get rid of it where no one gets hurt. That's the whole job of a sapper, to try and explain that as in its simplest terms. So there's a whole bunch of ways the sappers go about their jobs. Like, for example, when you take a mine, which is a bomb you bury underground, and when someone steps on it, it blows up. Usually sappers either go around with a metal detector and they try and find the metallic reading, like on the metal detector, of a mine being underground, and then they dig it up and they take it somewhere safe and blow it up or defuse it. Or for, say, it's like a bomb that fell in the middle of a city, like a huge bomb, and it didn't blow up. They send in some EOD guys, which are also sappers. That's just a different name for the guys whose specific job is to go find these bombs. And they go in there, and then they defuse that bomb, and then they transport it somewhere safe, and then they blow it up. Sometimes even, sappers don't even have that luxury. Like, for example, when the Home Guard in Britain was, I guess you could say, trying to help defend Britain during the Blitz, in London, there's a very interesting story that revolves around St. Paul's, let me find it. Where in the hell is it? St. Paul's Cathedral, which is right here. During the Blitz, a bomb actually fell right through the dome on St. Paul's Cathedral up here. It blasted straight through and straight down. And that's what the inside of that dome looks like. And it literally fell about right there in the middle of that dial. So what happened is that some Home Guard guys came into this building, literally ran into it. They pulled up a Bedford truck right outside of the entrance to the cathedral at the front. They, by just their raw muscle, they yanked the bomb, and it was a 500-pound bomb, out of the floor and just dragged it down to the cathedral and out to the front door, loaded it onto the back of the truck, and then they drove it out to Essex, which is kind of out. Let's see here. I'll try and show you. Kind of like out here. They drove it near Southend-on-Sea, and then they blew it up. And so sometimes they don't even get the luxury of defusing the bomb. They just take a live bomb that didn't blow up, and they just drag it somewhere and then blow it up there. But that's kind of what sappers do, like a whole list of things that sappers do. But pretty much they get bombs out of places where people could possibly get killed by them, and then they blow them up somewhere safe. So with that, thank you so much once again for support, Cindy Mitchell, and of course, helping this channel to keep on running. And it's always good to hear that you and Tucker are watching. And thank you to both of y'all so much once again for support and helping the Lee Spring Army to keep on rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next, we have a very generous $42 super chat from Duncan VR. And of course, the animal noises will follow.
Hey!
And thank you, Duncan, for the support. He says, Bamuba. Poodler's red fire button is faulty with a ba-ba. He pressed the button, and the drone was aimed at his toilet seat with a woof woof. He saw the drone heading straight for him and crapped his panties. Only that nutcase Poodler. Meow.
And I thank you so much for the support, Duncan VR, and of course, helping this channel to keep on running. Of course, the message is a little cryptic, but nonetheless, I do thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. And I'll sit there again the animal noises because everybody knows it. And just because Ruben said I couldn't, I guess you could say that's a pretty funny running joke on this channel. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I guess you could say we're greatly appreciative of it, and I guess you could say it helps this channel to keep on running. And with that, I guess you could say we're on to the next one. Thank you once again.
All right, and our next one goes to Mike D, who puts in a $22 super chat, and thank you, Mike, very much for that support. He says, if you YouTube search, quote-unquote, the Guardian drone Moscow at 1:15 and skip to the 30-second mark, it has a video of the drone in question with the canard wing. Also, do you think the attacks on civilian infrastructure will affect Western aid to Ukraine?
I don't think so, because the Ukrainians aren't taking any direct involvement or taking claim of that attack. It most likely was a partisan attack, and once again, the Ukrainians can't really control the actions of partisans. While they may be aligned with Ukraine, the Ukrainians do not have direct command or control over them, and therefore cannot be responsible for them. So I would say, in my opinion, that probably won't affect Western support. And also, thank you for sharing that. I will try and look into that after the stream. Don't really want to watch it because it may be copyrighted. There's always the risk that something can be copyrighted. You know, if nobody believes me on that, ask Warner Brothers. They'll tell you that they copyright their stuff. You know, to the folks out there that have had a problem with Warner Brothers. But I would say they probably won't have that much of a problem out of that. But I do thank you for sharing that, and it probably is a canard wing craft. It's just that in the other video, it looked a lot like it was a Cessna, but that may have just been some other drone entirely. But with that, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you make it possible. And thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address that, and we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $20 super chat from Santiago Flores, who sent us those really cool Brick Mania. I guess you could say brick kits. I was about to say Lego kits, but it's not Lego. But thank you very much, Santiago, for sending both of those, the Bayraktar and the Stugna. Very cool. And he says, "Good evening. I wondered who is behind those drone attacks on Moscow."
And I thank you so much for the support, Santiago. And I guess you could say that. I guess you could say. I'm so sorry, everyone. I know that's
those filler words to the max.
Man, filler words to the max. Call this padding because we're putting that padding. But anyways, I would say no one really knows at this point. Really, it could be anyone. It could have been the Ukrainians, could have been the Russians conducting a false flag, could have been a partisan attack. I'm kind of in the camp out of all three of those options that most likely is a partisan attack. So that would, if I had to give you a definitive answer, it's most likely a partisan attack. But once again, who really knows? Because there's really not enough clear information coming out right now about where those drones did come from, or what they looked like, or what model they were. So, it's... whoa, Matthew, look at that. You're about to show that noob who's noobing. Oh,
man, that was Bolshevik.
Man, call that a moida. That man just got executed. But anyways, I would say...
Now they will call it self-defense.
Self-defense. I would say... Oh, yeah, there we go. It's most likely a partisan attack if I had to give you an honest answer. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Santiago. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for sending those cool little Lego kits from Brick Mania. Those are really neat. I really like them. And I also like that little video they made out of their brick kits for Ukraine, like with the MiG-29 in it and all that stuff. It was really cool. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Daniel Rodas. And thank you, Daniel, very much for that support. He says, "There's a bird flying in the beginning of the video, showing that drone thing flying backwards."
Look, there's a bird flying at the beginning of that video. Let's go back and take a look at it. I saw it myself. Oh, let's see here. Here it is. Look. Hopefully this is the right one. Yep, it is. Yeah, see, the birds are flying in normal time, so this video is playing not backwards, but forwards. And, oh my god. Did you see that, Matthew?
I did.
It's the return of a legend. It's the return of a legend, Matthew.
It is?
It is. Oh, yes. It is return of a legend. But still... Thank you once again for support. You are correct. You can see birds flying at the beginning of that video, and they were flying in normal time, not backwards time. And so with that, thank you once again for support. Thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one, and I hope it's from our legend.
All right, so up next, real quick. Also, by the way, PsyOps is back, so... And real quick, we're going to get to Hoodoo Texas $20 super chat first because he's trying to leave for the night, and I want him to hear his super chat. So Hoodoo, thank you very much for that support. And he says, Watson Watt justified his choice of a non-optimal frequency for radar, which he stated as, "Give them the third best to go on with. The second best comes too late, and the best never comes." Sounds like past Ukraine military aid.
And I thank you so much for the support. And I would have to say, kind of does sound a little bit like it. So I'd agree with you, actually. That's a pretty appropriate quote, at least for the moment. And so, with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Mr. Hoodoo Texas. And also, he's the guy who has the really cool Renault FT17, or it is a Ford FT17, but I forgot what those were exactly called. But anyways, with that, I think it was like the Ford 7.5-ton tank or something like that. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And I certainly agree with that quote. It kind of does look like what Western support has been like, at least so far. But I feel like that's changing here in the near future. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we're getting to that $20 super chat from PsyOps, who has made a return. And PsyOps, thank you very much for that support. He says, "Surgery on the nephew was a success. Not out of the woods yet. I'm exhausted. I heard I missed quite good news from Ukraine. Have a 1-week summary, question mark. Ukraine offense started yet, question mark. Does Texas still stink, question mark. Does Matt still not wear pants, question mark.
Question mark? Huh? To answer that question, welcome back, PsyOps! And so welcome back. Oh my god, man, you sound like an eldritch monster through that. You should hear that on replay. You know what? I think I can unmute this and you can hear that. Question mark? Huh? To answer that question, welcome back, Psyops! Oh, and so welcome back. Oh my, that's what you sounded like, man. That was bad. That was terrible. You sounded like one of those backrooms creatures on those videos. Oh my god.
Oh my god, that sounded bad.
I'm happy you can actually hear that through what I heard, because that was great. Anyways, welcome back, Psyops. And to answer the questions, it's good to hear that the surgery on your nephew was a success, and I'm very happy that you've been able to return us and that everything went well in that department. And also, I hope that while you're not out of the woods yet, everything continues to go fine here forward, because that is a pretty rough avenue to be in right there, and I hope that things continue to improve in that direction. And I completely understand why you're exhausted. I'm surprised you're even here with us tonight, because I don't think we expected you to be back for several more days. But let's see. Quite good news from Ukraine. Yeah, so there's been a good news. And sadly, I really don't have a whole week summary, because so much happens in a week, really in a day, that once I cover the news tonight, I kind of have to largely throw a lot of it out of my head and make room for tomorrow's news. So sadly, I can't really make a week summary, because I'd have to try and remember everything that's happened over the past 7 days, and we've covered like 300 video clips and gone over so many Frontline summaries. So I can say that there was a drone attack in Moscow. The Ukrainians are continuing to push around Bakhmut. Russian losses have dropped a little bit, but that shows that they have stopped all offensive actions, and it appears that they're probably getting ready for the counteroffensive by Ukraine, probably here in the next few days or weeks. So, with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And the Ukrainian offensive has not started yet. Texas does not stink. Every state in the United States is great. Every single one except for Minnesota. And, you know what I mean, Matthew. You know what I mean. And then let's see what else to answer. Is Matt still not wearing pants? No, actually, Matthew's, he's a naturalist. I'm just kidding. He's completely clothed. No, no, man. He's completely clothed. So he is still wearing pants. Absolutely. We're both completely clothed, by the way. We are not really in presentable, I guess you say presentable for the cameras. Like, to be honest with you, I'm wearing one of those white dressing t-shirts that you wear under a formal shirt. That's kind of what I'm wearing right now. I think Matthew's wearing like a black t-shirt or something like that.
I'm actually fully dressed up from midday. Actually, I could actually be in front of the camera right now.
Oh, I could not be in front of the camera right now. And in case if y'all are wondering, like, huh, what do you mean you're wearing a white dressing shirt? About the time before I run this stream, and considering that this room has no ventilation in it whatsoever, I usually try and get down to as minimal clothing as possible. So it's like a white t-shirt, shorts, and that's it. Because it's hot as hell in this room most of the time, so I try and make sure that my clothes aren't making me feel even warmer. And then also, I felt really sick today. I kind of feel like I had flu-like heat all day, nothing else, just flu-like heat, and it's been horrendous. So I've, also trying to keep cool on top of that, and I've not been cold this whole stream. I feel like I've been burning alive, and then my feet are freezing cold, so then I turn on the heater. It's been a whole thing tonight. But yes, he is wearing pants, to answer that, and also to give you all a little bit of a background of what we're looking like right now behind the scenes. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for support, Psyops. Welcome back, and thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $13 super chat from Cliff H. And thank you very much, Cliff, for that support. He says, the question is, what is the secret to Enforcer Matt's thriving and vibrant garden? And the answer is, lots of pollination. And I gotta say, that one was pretty good, I have to admit.
I have to say that it's gonna be one of the greatest that I've ever heard. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna have to work on that one. We're scrapping that one until it can be worked on. That's just not good anymore. I don't know what's happening to it. It's turning very badly, very quickly. I've got to be honest with you. People are saying this one's not good anymore, and they don't know why. But we'll work on it. Anyways, to address this as much as I can, I do thank you for the support, and I do thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And that's just quite a good one, I'd say. Quite a good pun, I'd say. And Matthew, did you want a live chat?
And no, he didn't ask for one, actually.
He didn't ask for one. I'd hope not. I'd hope he'd ask for one. I'm just kidding you. But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to StrayCat241, who puts in a $10 super chat. And thank you very much, Stray Cat, for the support. They said, we've sat here and watched numerous civilians attacked and watched the bombing of Mariupol theater, and yet one attack on Moscow and people are clutching their pearls. And I will say real quick before the enforcer answers this one, there's no question that Russia has committed a ton of atrocities, and hopefully one day they can be held responsible, specifically the leaders at the top like Putin. But I will say that the difference is Russia does have nukes, even though they do like to run their mouths and they have a lot of, imaginary red lines. They do have a red line somewhere. So we have to keep that in mind when we see very extreme actions being taken, that it could result in that red line being triggered and they could try to do something. It's always a possibility, although it's unlikely. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with that for the most part, but everyone starts clutching their pearls because everyone always acts like the Russians can't be attacked, although they show that they suck quite tremendously. Everyone always thinks that they are impervious to attack because the Russians have had such a great propaganda that no one really thinks it's possible for anyone to hurt them. But when they do get hurt, everyone's very shocked very greatly. And so with that, I thank you for the support, and I hope that addresses that fairly well and kind of explains why people start clutching their pearls. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a 20 euro, euro super chat from none other than Wilness. And thank you, Wilness, for that very generous support. He says, greetings from Latvia. I just woke up in time to rewind the stream. Here's some consolation money for Tear Jar. We won USA in ice hockey. Thanks for a great job. And question from the live chat and Baba Moo Moo. Giggity.
Giggity.
I don't know what that was supposed to be, but I said giggity.
Giggity. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, Wilness. And also, hello to Latvia. Look at that. That's the old Soviet town of Ogre. Wow. I wonder who lives here. Well, let's take a look at the town of Ogre. What is in Ogre?
Probably a swamp.
Oh, no, it's actually a nice place. Wow, this is nice. You know what this kind of looks like? It looks like a university campus, sort of.
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little bit bleak.
Little Blake, get the hell out of here. Look, it's an ogre Texas.
It says ogre on the side of it.
Dude, that's a turtle, man. That'd be a turtle, man. And, dude, it's the Ogre Municipality. I feel like when you show up to town hall meetings here, everyone has to dress up like Shrek or something. That's just the rule. But anyways, moving on from that. Hello to Latvia, and specifically Riga, which, if you ever play Monopoly, Monopoly World or something like that, you can actually buy Riga. It's one of the more expensive tiles on the map. But anyways, moving on from all the fun facts I know about Latvia, I thank you so much for the support, Wilness, and being here with us tonight, and also just getting here. You have missed pretty much all of the news, and you came in the middle of the question segment. But still, nonetheless, I hope you've been having a fun time, and thank you so much once again for the support. Interesting to hear you beat the United States in ice hockey. I'm sure you can't beat us in American football. I'm just kidding. No one plays American football, and no one outside the U.S. really cares about American football, except for a small few. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. We will be making sure to get a question from the live chat. And thank you for enjoying this stream a great deal and appreciating it enough to support us to help us to keep this thing running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for support.
All right, and the live chat question goes to JDR24, who says, in your guys' opinions, at what point does this become World War III proper, and we have to be on the doorsteps, question mark?
World War III proper would begin once the United States gets involved, because once we get involved, NATO will get involved, and regardless whether it just stays in between NATO and Russia, or if it involves even other countries beyond that, that is qualifying as a world war at that point. So that would be the point World War III would begin. Right now, it's nothing more than a war similar to like the Franco-Prussian War, or the Austro-Italian War. It's a war similar to that. It's on that level. It's not really reached the World War level, and it probably won't. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again, Wilness, for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
And our next super chat goes to Mia Story, who puts in a $10 super chat. And thank you, Mia, very much for that support. And she says, thank you for being a steady supporter of Ukraine.
And thank you for enjoying your steady support of Ukraine. I take this thing very seriously, actually. And although back in the day, I'll tell y'all, I've started to get terribly tired back in the day, especially when college was going, because it felt like I never had time to even think. I was just constantly just reacting to stuff I had to do each and every day, and it was tiresome. But luckily that's over, and I've gotten a whole boost of energy thanks to that. And I thank you so much for enjoying it, because like I was saying, I do take this thing very seriously. We both take this thing very seriously, actually, and we are dedicated to keeping this thing running really 7 days a week. While we don't run a stream on Mondays now, we do make a short video that goes out on Mondays now to make sure that there is continuous news coverage in a form. And so I thank you so much for enjoying what we do. Because we always try our best. We always try our hardest to make sure that this is a continuous news channel. And although there's only 2 of us behind the scenes, we really do try our best to take this as seriously as possible and to make sure that news coverage comes out consistently. And then someone's going to say, take it seriously? Bro, you joke during the whole thing. Yeah, that's because I'm not like you. And then, Matthew, That'll be those people, Matthew, the ones I'm about to talk about, that say, oh, you don't know what reality is, but then they spend their whole life trying to figure out a way to not look at reality, if you know what I mean. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well, and thank you once again for enjoying this channel and helping us to keep it running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Sick Lid, who says, didn't the Leaf Spring Army send a drone to Ukraine? I blame us for that backward flying drone.
And I thank you so much for the support. And the drone is on the way, but it's going to take a little bit of a while, and nobody tells people this, and nobody told me this. It is ungodly difficult to get something into Ukraine, or out of Ukraine for that matter. It takes a millennia nearly. So it is on the way. But we probably won't be hearing about that drone over there for a good while. Hell, honestly, the process is so complicated. I'm going to be honest with y'all, I'm kind of banking on that thing getting lost somewhere along the way, because it has to change hands so many times from how we have it set up to I'm not really sure if it will make it over there, because it has to reach one carrier, and then it has to be transported to Europe, and then it gets put in the hands of another carrier, and then it's transported to Poland, where it's then put in the hands of another company, and then they take it across the border into Ukraine, and then they take it to those guys, and that company is completely dependent on a list of what they expect to receive eventually, and then that company has to guess whether this thing is what they are supposed to be receiving or what someone else is supposed to be receiving. It is extremely difficult, and I'm honestly kind of banking on that thing getting lost. So I don't really know how that video will actually turn out. At this point, I really don't know. But we are trying, and hopefully it will make it all the way over there. It's just not there yet. And so with that, thank you once again for the support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Rocky Huerta. And thank you, Rocky, very much for that support. Excuse me. I'm donating only to continue the great work, he says.
And thank you so much for donating to continue the great work. That was so straightforward, it threw me off for a minute. I was like, what? That's it? But still, thank you for the support. Thank you for helping this channel to keep on running, and we are greatly appreciative of you enjoying and appreciating this channel enough to find it worthwhile to support us, to help us to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, we're on to the next one, and thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next, we have another $10 super chat from Rocky, and he says, Enforcer Matt, question. The counteroffensive will be in phases, and which phase do you think Ukraine is in or has begun?
Phase 3. We think that it's in Phase 3, according to our Twitter post, which was a very good one. It was a great one, actually. Incredible. Matthew actually came up with that when we both worked on it, but Matthew was the main author of that list, and it was an incredible list, I must say. And so I would say, based off of that list, we're in the 3rd phase. We're not really towards the 4th one yet. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the question fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Blue Flam 777 LSA with an exclamation point at the end. And it's good to see you again, Blue Flam, and thank you for the support. He says, how long will I live? The psychic says, I cannot tell that, but I do know you will die on a Ukrainian holiday. Which holiday? Putin asked. Whichever day you die on will be a Ukrainian holiday.
And I thank you for the support. Very cryptic. And I actually paid a palm reader to read my hand, and then they said, "Oh, your future is very sweaty." And I said, "Oh," and they said, "No, your hand is. Get out of here." And then they took my money. But anyway.
I get no respect. I get no respect.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I went into a palm reader. I gave them $5. They told me, "Ew, get it the hell out of here." Oh man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. But still, I hope that does address it fairly well. And I would say that's a very interesting joke indeed. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, oh dear. Incredible method. Well, it looks like the wish did not come true. And so with that, we're on. Oh man, Randy,
I have a list, and I'm checking it twice, but they don't call me Santa Claus.
Oh, it doesn't matter whether you're naughty or nice. And I like Mandy how they said, I believe deleting mean comments is unfair and repressive, and it got deleted immediately. That's like, oh, it's like, look, the irony of it all. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. And I'll say this real quick. I always have to say this, just a quick reminder. You see, to the specific person, not Pacific, the specific person that was banned, you see, it is our show. And when you come into someone's show, like you go into someone's business, we can do what we like here. So, we kind of lay out the ground rules. If you don't agree with them, well, tough. I would suggest making your own channel and running it your way. But when you come to someone's business, like Twitter or YouTube, or you come to someone's channel like The Enforcer or Dennis Davidoff or Operator Starsky, they get to run it how they want. I hate to tell you that, but people are people. They do what they want, and there's nothing you're going to do to stop us. They're diabolical. That's what they're going to be saying. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $17 super chat from Jesus, UCSB once again. Thank you very much, Jesus, for the continued support. He says, "Hola, again, question, can we start an LSA tank platoon? I would be the Mexican-American General Patton. For a speech, let that SOB die for his country. Lol, LSA tankers. LSA, 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 LSA.
LSA, LSA, LSA. And I thank you so much for the support, Jesus UCSB, and helping this channel keep on running. And I would say, yes, you could be our general of the tank division in the LSA for sure. I think you would be the most qualified person for the job that we know of here in the LSA. And I would say if we were able to do that, yeah, that would be cool. Like I'm always one looking at the tanks for sale online, because they're always so expensive and I could never buy one. But wouldn't that be cool to have like a working tank you could just kind of like drive around? I think that'd be neat. Of course, legally compliant, obviously. But I still think it would be really neat nonetheless. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support. And by the way, Mandy, I forgot to tell you this. You know what I saw the other day? M8 scout car. I saw
one for sale.
No, I didn't. I saw one in person. I saw one of these little M8 scout cars right here in person.
How much those run for?
I don't even know. I feel like they're really expensive though. M8 Scout Greyhound for sale. Let's see if we can find one. This one looks to be in pretty good shape. It's in the UK though. So what's the price? What's the price? Let's see. Let's see here. Any price? Any price listed? Let's see. It doesn't look like it has a price listed there. Let me go to another. This one. Oh, this was only $32,000.
That's on Bring a Trailer. That's where I usually look at cars.
Wow, look at that. Dang. And then this one sold for $71,000. So it's like the price of a Corvette. It's a 19. Something looks wonky about this one though. There's something wrong with the gun or something else. This does not look like a normal like M8 armored car. Like I gotta be honest.
Something. Dang, 71,000?
Yeah, it was an expensive one. But I got to see one of these things, man, and it was so cool. They turned it on and they actually drove it off when it was getting later on in the day. And when they turned that thing on, the engine went. And it sounded like that the whole time. I was like, oh man. And it drove right by me. I was like, that is super cool. But it was neat. It was sick. But anyways, with that, if we could get one of those, you could command that thing. That would be super cool. You know what? Let me check our OBS real quick because it looks like it's not lagging actually. Tanks for sale. Ex-army vehicles. This is that one over there. Yeah, this is the one in the Czech Republic. Tanks a lot. Let's take a look at tanks a lot.
Oh, thank you for your business.
Thank you. Let's see. Oh, they got a Stalker. Oh, that's really cool. And then they, of course, have, like, the typical stuff you see in Ukraine, a Scorpion, 2S1. Dude, do we buy this stuff in America for fun? In Russia, this is considered an actual SPG. Then you have some Spartans, a Scimitar, a Striker.
How much is the Scimitar, by the way?
The Scimitar. Dude, those Scimitars are really cool.
Do they have a price?
Do they have a price? It doesn't appear that they have a price.
Interesting.
Interesting. I love how
Oh, this is a tank driving experience. These aren't for sale.
Oh, forget it. Forget about it. Let's see here. What about this website? Now,
There's some used ones.
Now, this is the website we were wanting to find because they usually actually have the prices on this one, at least from what I remember. Yeah, here we go. Here's the price. So we can actually get
Damn.
an M16 for 49,000 euros.
Good lord.
That's really expensive, honestly, for
Yeah,
like
that's
a half
steep.
track. What else do you got price on? We could get a Daimler Ferret. These things are actually really cool for only 25,000 pounds.
Only 25,000 pounds? What are you,
Yeah,
crazy?
man, it's an armored car. It's an armored car. That's really cool for only that much. And then we could get this 1964 Daimler Ferret, which is in Ireland. I wonder why, but we could get it for 13,000 pounds. Probably doesn't run, but oh my god. Oh, no way. Dude, it's one of the, like...
520,000?
Okay, I'll explain this one on the price. These were really rare in the war. I think they only made, like, a few thousand of these things. And they're also, like, massive, like, half-track troop transports. They're very rare, actually. So I get the price on that one. Like, I understand that completely. But some of the other ones, though, they're kind of like a dime a dozen. Oh, the Fuchs! No way! Oh, that would be cool! Oh.
Wait, is that a Leopard for sale down there? I see a Leopard 1V.
This is a recovery vehicle.
No, not that one. It's 245,000 right there.
Dude, a Weasel! Wait a minute, look, it's a Weasel, like the one people are wanting to send to Ukraine.
How much is this?
It doesn't even have a price listed, but
Oh, it's an auction.
a Leopard 1.5 or Leopard 1V. Oh, that's only 245,000
No.
for a modern MBT. That's pretty cool.
Now, for a tank, that's acceptable. That thing for 500,000, that was a joke. Who would even buy that? Who could buy it?
A Stug 3 replica for only 80,000. That's actually not that bad for a Stug replica, really. That's wild. Oh my god, it's an EBR! That is neat. It's in bad shape, terribly bad shape. That is so cool, though, because it actually has a driver's position looking backwards and looking forward, so it's an omnidirectional tank. And it has the same amount of gears going both directions. That is
It's okay. Yeah, I'm not too fond of it.
well, you know, it's just cool from a person. An M10. Wow, now that's worth its price right there because those are actually kind of rare. That's really cool. What else do they have?
Not bad.
Is that a Stormer HVM? Oh my god, it's just a Stormer HVM. Wow,
That's
they're using
not
that in
too bad
Ukraine
price,
right now.
actually.
Let's see, what else? I'm sorry, y'all. I know we're getting a little sidetracked here, but this is a very interesting look. There's a BMP-1 in Switzerland for sale. How did they get that? I don't know. M8 Greyhound. Now, that's a proper-looking M8 Greyhound. Very similar to the one I saw the other day, but the one I saw didn't have a turret. It was the command version of the M8. But really cool. Not that bad of a price, but still pretty pricey for, like, a light recon vehicle, even if it is old. But, man... 110,000 pounds for a T-34-85. And man, they slapped that sickle and hammer on that thing like it was running out of style. Let's see here.
I'll give them $5 for it.
I'd give him $5 in the song. But anyways, I hope y'all like that little trip down that interesting rabbit hole. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support. Hey, UCSB, and you will be that LSA tanker commander. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Fushikon, who puts in a $5 super chat and says, "Woot, I'm first, the enforcer."
And he was first. Fushikon was first tonight. And I got to thank you so much for the support, Fushikon, and being the first one to support the channel tonight. And of course, being an OG LSA Old Guard. I guess OG does stand for Old Guard in that sense. You are an an OG LSA member. So with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And from here forward, if you're called an OG, you're an Old Guard. That doesn't mean original gangster or whatever the hell it's supposed to really mean. It's Old Guard from here forward. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to John LSA North Zedrin, who puts in a $15 super chat and says, meet me for coffee and a free question.
And we will make sure to get that coffee. Thank you. Delicious. And we'll also make sure to get a free question. So with that, what do we got, Matthew?
And the live chat question goes to Alan J. McLeod, who says, I strongly believe that if Russia was not attacking civilians, they would have won the war. And what are your thoughts?
I would say whether they did attack civilians or not, they would not probably be winning the war. Because their army is too poorly trained, is too poorly supplied. If they weren't attacking citizenry, it probably wouldn't have changed anything anyways, in my opinion at least. But that's just me. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. Because you may be right, they may have been able to win the war if they didn't target citizenry, but I think, honestly, they're just too far gone that it really doesn't even matter. It just makes them look even worse for doing it. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for sponsoring that live chat.
All right, and the next one goes to Albert Meltzer, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, Enforcer, all drones were targeting the Rublevka district, where elites in Putin live. Most damage done to the tall buildings throughout Moscow was done by Russian air defense systems.
And I thank you for the support, and I thank you for sharing that info with us. And I'm trying to find Rublevka. Let's see here. I think we looked at it before, actually. Rublevka.
This is where the very, very few wealthy folks in Russia live, I'd imagine.
Well, interestingly enough, Moscow houses 10% of Russia's population within its confines.
That's kind of wild.
Yeah, so it's a population of 10 million. Moscow is actually bigger than London is in terms of population. But let's see. Rubivka is how it's called?
Rublevka.
Rublevka. Tula. It's in Tula. That ain't it. This is not it.
That's way far away from Moscow.
Yeah, and that's also not, that doesn't really look rich and posh. That looks like farmers or something, you know. It's that's not rich and posh Moscow. So sadly, let me go try and look for it again. Rublevka cars. Maybe this is it. There it is. Wait, is this it? Oh, it's a real estate
agency.
It's somewhere in this area, I believe, because someone got blown up out here a while ago, and we reported on it, and we did find Rublevka then. I can't find it now, but I think it is somewhere in this area. And it is interesting to hear that. And I did see some Russian propaganda guys talking about, what are you cheering on the hitting of the rich people? What are you talking about? I thought we were all Russians. But I didn't put that on today's news because we had so much news to cover anyways that I wouldn't have been able to get around to all of it. But I do thank you for the support and sharing that.
Check your Discord DMs, by the way. I've sent you a link to show you the how high on the hog these folks are living.
High on the hog? Excuse me, sir? You mean they're high on that hog?
Yeah.
Are you telling me they're partaking in the pork?
Sure. I mean,
you said sure. But let's see here. Most expensive area in Russia. Oh, I see. He lives in Disneyland Castle. Let's see. Sprawling and flashy gypsy-style castles. Dang, taking a pot shot at the gypsies immediately. All right, today, elite but near-empty shopping malls and fine restaurants next to old wooden huts. We'll show you the place that Russia's rich call home. The famous Rublevka, an elite district of Moscow where local restaurants serve the red list instead of a menu. That's how Rublevka was described in the popular Russian TV comedy show Nasha Russia, which featured a series of sketches about Siphon and Baroda, two Rublevka homeless guys. They were forever finding Gucci bags and plane tickets to Egypt in garbage cans, and fed stray cats with discarded red caviar. Terrible stuff. Welcome to Russian greed. But anyways, Rublevka is a group of elite residential towns. Bravika, Razdory, Zhukovka, Lusovka, Gorky. located 10 kilometers west of Moscow. It's home to politicians, oligarchs, generals, celebrities, and even some not just spiritually wealthy officials of the Russian Orthodox Church. Rublevka is an unofficial name, so you won't find it on any map. But thanks to our journalists, realtors, and comedy sketch writers, the word is stuck in the national consciousness. At first glance, most of the towns are just narrow roads between high fences and walls, behind which lies untold luxury.
Let's see the pictures.
Look at that thing.
That's they wanted to be militaristic.
Dude, they said, I wanted to look like a snakehead. Okay. I want mine to look like lollipops and gingerbread. Okay, goofus. We'll build it. I want my room to have the sky. You know, we could just build a skylight, right? No, I want to paint it on. Okay, whatever. That just looks stupid. This is a stupid bathroom layout. I want my
Was it from like the 60s?
Dude, this honestly, this is pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie.
This is that
Ew.
that German wall falling down type beat.
Man, this is that I want my house to look like garbage because I can afford it kind of style. This is just terrible. Wait a minute, is that Elton John? Yeah, it's Elton John. Man,
What's he
honestly,
doing out there?
honestly, with that kind of walk, he's not going to be standing much longer. I'm not. The song is not going to be "I'm still standing." It's going to be "I'm not standing. My hips are broken." Or something. I mean, it's a weird walking pose. But anyways, this is ridiculous. Oh, look, we got some Tsar worship going on here. Like they didn't kill them all or something. Let's see. Oh, you better watch out. She's doing something in Dubai. I'll tell you that. But yeah, this is a pretty wild place. I'll tell you that. Oh man, was there a red star? Yeah, look at that. They worship the Tsar, but then they put red stars on the side of their trains. Like these people make no sense as far as like their like imagery goes or anything like that. But there we have it. It's Gorky. So let's go find Gorky now that we know where that is. And, oh, here, look, Gorky 2, Gorky 10. Look at that. We found it. So, see what we got. Oh, yeah, you can tell. Yeah, let's drop down over here.
They let Street View on the one street where you really can't see anything.
Yeah, but you can tell these are the nicer houses in Russia. This honestly kind of looks like a nicer American neighborhood in a little bit. Like, not really, but you can kind of see they were going for it.
What kind of car is that down there?
But I'm not gonna lie, some of these houses like this one are just straight up dookie to be some of the best houses in Russia. And this road is garbage
pretty
too.
large.
So what's this car? It's a
Let's
Beamer.
see.
It's a Beamer X5.
I got a BMW X5 here. Yeah, this is a nice neighborhood apparently.
Because everyone else in Russia is driving that crappy Lada that they made in like the 70s that hasn't collapsed yet. But I'm not gonna lie, you know, it's okay, but like if this is what they're calling Russia's finest, then Russia's finest don't really live as great as America's finest live. Oh, wait a minute, that looks like kind of like one of the houses they took a picture of right there.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Yeah, but these roads are garbage, man. Dang, like there's just dirt on the side of them and everything. Like, there's no proper drainage, no proper curbs. I mean, like they just kind of set this thing up like a shanty shop, like as far as like nice neighborhoods go. But, weird. Oh my god. Oh my god. This is a gulag over here. That's the wall of the gulag. That's where they send the bad millionaires. Whenever they misbehave, they throw them over this wall for a week. But yeah, pretty interesting. I thank you for sharing that with us, and it's interesting to see. We got to look around Gorky. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Craig Platel who says, FYI, you can't compare missile warhead weight 1-to-1 with bomb weight. Bombs have 40 to 60% explosive to weight, so Storm Shadow is equivalent to a Mark 84, a 2,000-pound bomb as far as explosive weight.
And I thank you for the support. That is true. I was just trying to simplify it, man. Wasn't trying to make it difficult. But still, you're correct. That is correct. The whole weight of the bomb isn't in the explosives itself. It's kind of in everything, you know. But still, thank you once again for the support. I have to put my foot in my mouth on that one because you're right, Governor. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again, yeah.
And the next one goes to Champagne Supernova 13, who puts in a $10 super chat and says, Lukashenko update. Is he dead? Is he on the road to recovery or barely breathing? Poison, likely or unlikely? And thanks for all you do.
Poison, likely. His status, unknown. He's kind of out there somewhere, but we really don't know where and how good he's doing. So we know he's probably
He's still in intensive care, Governor.
He's still in intensive care, Governor. He's still getting that. He's still getting that catheter. You know, it's very uncomfortable.
He's still trying to find out whether or not the tea did him in or not. Was it the tea?
And then some guy showed up who kind of looked bold, Governor, and he said, "You want some more tea?" And he said, "Hey, you look like Putin." He said, "I never heard of him. Have some more tea." And he said, "Why are you insisting on the tea?" He said, "Just drink it." He's like, "No." And then the other guy said, "Oh, come on, man, just a sip." And then he went, "Okay, just a sip. Just a sip, all right?" And then it turned out to be Putin, and they were giving him a sip. Anyways.
Lukashenko, he called in the doctor. The doctor came in and said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, how much longer do I have to live? And the doctor said, 3 more days, Papa.
But man, honestly though, when Putin asks Lukashenko, "Are you a baller?" Lukashenko responds, "Nah, man, I'm a Bolshevik." That's like, what the hell's up with the spelling? Like, they took Bolshevik and they put like an apostrophe in it. Man, are you a real player? Nah, man, I'm a Bolshevik. But anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Frequency Harmonic, who says, "Can you please explain the animal noises? Don't get them. I've been trying to figure out the purpose for months. I just keep picturing someone in a furry squirrel or a sheep costume typing away questions or comments."
Thank you for the support, Frequency Harmonic. And the answer to that question is that the animal noises have no significance whatsoever. You see, a viewer called Duncan VR, who occasionally throws in super chats, started to popularize the use of animal noises, and the whole intent is that they're just funny, and they make folks laugh because they're just random and kind of weird. And so that's kind of the whole reason behind them. They have no significance whatsoever beyond that. So when you hear that, it just is there to kind of be funny. So with that, thank you so much for the support, Frequency Harmonic. Hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you do make it possible. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next we have another super chat from Wellness. LSA he added to his name. Very cool. He puts in a $10 donation and says, in a case that Putin gets overthrown and the next president regrets this war, also major public wakes up and understand that the war was a terrible idea, what steps New Russia should take?
New Russia would probably start taking steps to reconcile with the West and to most likely pull themselves in closer. Or a new government could come in and say what Putin did was terrible, and that's why we need to side with the Chinese, because nothing ever bad will happen with the Chinese. And we all know that's not true, but that may be something. That may be another direction that a new leader would go in. Regardless, though, if a new leader did step in, the war would probably end. At least that's what we would assume. That may not always be the case, though. It really just depends on who comes up next in line after Putin, or whoever takes charge. So I would say, to make sure to recap this in a coherent answer, if he gets overthrown, they could either reconcile what the hell is that? Reconcile with the West and start to draw in closer to them and go the opposite direction of where they're going right now, or they could probably say that what Putin did was an atrocity, and that's why they need to align themselves with the Chinese, so that way the Chinese can take care of things for them, so that way they don't end up committing atrocities like that again. They could really go either way. But with that, thank you once again for support, Wilderness, and I love that you put LSA in your name. That's really cool. And with that, thank you so much once again for support. Thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat from CK Bold, who says, "Take a live chat as usual." And CK, thank you very much for that continued support, and we will grab a live chat question. It's going to go to Serenity, who says, "Why hasn't Ukraine hit the Kerch Bridge yet? I'm hoping it's going to be soon. I want to watch it burn."
Serenity now, serenity now. And to answer that question, I would say the reason why they have not hit the Kerch Bridge is because, one, they're trying to give the Russians a way out, the Russian citizenry that are still in Sevastopol, a safe place to escape, or it may just not be the opportune time yet. They certainly do have the ability now to be able to hit the Kerch Bridge, but it just seems for some reason they're deciding not to for now. I'm sure there is a grand strategy reason as to why. That's probably one of the other two reasons I listed, but I hope that addresses that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for asking a pretty good question, and thank you once again, CK Bull, for sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we were on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $5 donation from Marc-Andre Brunette, who says, it really looked like reverse video of plane flying in the sky.
And we looked at it a pretty good bit. And I thank you so much for the support as well. And it appears that it was flying in real time forwards, which was weird. That's really weird. But with that, thank you once again for the support, Marc-Andre Brunette. And I hope that does answer that fairly well. Thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a $5 super chat from Cap64, who says, Canard Design, Twitter has a close-up and won't let me put the URL here, has a nose wheel under a small wing up front.
And I thank you for the support, and we did see that in the video. It's just that we couldn't really differentiate whether the other one was the same drone as that one or not. We could not really tell. But I do thank you so much for the support, nonetheless, in helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and the next one goes to the Annihilator, who puts in a $5 super chat and says, the schism, the beef, explanation please.
So, the schism, first schism or the second schism? First schism started because Discord mods wanted to be paid, like, a lot of cash. And it was cash that we could not pay all of them because we would end up actually running a deficit very quickly. And they also wanted to tell me how to run my show. That was more so the line that was drawn for me, was more so about them wanting to tell me how to run the show. I was putting all of the effort into at that point because Matthew wasn't in the picture yet. So it was really all just me. And so the first schism happened, then the second schism happened, to fast forward a whole year later. Second schism happened because over the course of months, moderators had been abusing LSA members, and I had not been informed of any of this, although there was supposed to be a chain of command where everything went up to me eventually if it got serious enough. Instead, they just treat people like crap. People would feel that was a representation of how I wanted them to be treated, and then they'd leave. And then that happened to Psyops as well, and then I went and said, hey, don't really like that. They also tried to form a second server and start telling people that the LSA isn't even an enforcer channel thing. It's just something that happened to appear randomly on the internet, although you can literally go back and watch the stream where the LSA was formed on air. They wanted to go and start telling that lie. So then I said, hey, give me control of the Discord server real quick. We're just going to go back to the old way things were. And that almost didn't happen, but for some reason they gave me control, and then I just went and deleted all of the Discord servers because I was not going to have that crap. And
Oh, that was a good move, boss.
oh, good move, boss. And then afterwards, they wanted to go around and start lying about everything. And then they also wanted to say that the reason why, and this was such a stupid reason, but to tell you the exact details, they wanted to say the reason why we sided with Psyops wasn't because they were being rude assholes to people. It was because Psyops was a cash cow. But the thing is that all of the moderators had supported this channel financially one way or another. In fact, one of the moderators, Susie, was actually a Patreon member, and it probably supported the channel as much as Psyops. But the thing is that I don't care how much people have supported this channel, especially if you're in a moderator position. There is a right and wrong way to do things, and there's the enforcer way to do things, and then there's the asshole way to do things, and they were doing the asshole way to do things. So I don't care who's supporting what. I'm not for that. So, and then, they went around, and you can find them in occasional places here and there. You can find them, let's see, on a few channels, Discords. They love to stir beef over there and act like, oh, I just wish I could drop it, but let me tell you all about the travesty. And then also...
Oh, they were so hurt.
And also...
They want to get away with cussing people out, and then they don't want the same thing in return.
Yeah.
They run off crying like little, B-word, and can't take it. But they can dish it, though. They can dish it out real quick.
And then also they are the ones who have sat there, because there's a website out there actually called Playboard. And so they take a stat that is supposedly, and I'll tell you, and I'll just, level with y'all what it is. It supposedly shows our income, but they're so dumb, I guess, or I guess they are all so dumb, that they don't realize that they don't recognize the difference in between super chats and donations to fundraisers. If it shows up in the live chat, they just count it. So that grand total on Playboard is almost entirely all of the fundraisers we've ever run. It does that to anyone who runs a fundraiser. So I was like, that's so stupid, because if you look at the graph, you can see every single Sunday it spikes because it's counting all of the fundraiser donations through YouTube Give. It's like that doesn't even. It's like that was dumb to me. And on top of that, you can even see that because on nights where the live chat does not show folks' donations, it shows nothing for that night. And I was like, that's such a stupid thing to go gather a number from. Is some arbitrary third-party website that even tells you as a disclaimer up top, it just recognizes everything in the live chat, no matter what it is. So they are also the ones who've largely started to spearhead that stupid story and that stupid lie. And it's like, if you want to disprove it, you can easily just sit there and watch our live chat and add up all the super chats and then multiply them by 0.7, and you can clearly tell that's not what they're trying to peddle as truth is certainly not the truth. Because if we're working off the number they're giving, hell, we would have like 5 times the number of super chats coming in that we have right now, and it's like, that's just not the way it works. But anyways, that's the story of the schisms, and that's also the stories of the lies that they went and started spreading around all over. But with that, hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Oh, and have a little truth, boss. Have a little truth, Iceland.
Oh, the lies! So tell about me now.
Yes. Meanwhile, they go around and cope on every Discord server.
Every single one. They're on
I know
every
exactly
single one
where
of
they
them.
are too. They don't know that they can literally be tracked across these Discords. But anyways, I know exactly what they're saying. I know exactly where they are too.
Wait, one more thing, Matthew. I always love the ones where they sit there and they put out that fake number, which has also been put out by another person who we're having a major issue with because apparently he's also been dumb enough to just jump straight into that. It's like, you know, and then they sit there and say, out of all of the support that people have given him, how much does he give to Ukraine? It's like, well, if you were smart enough to actually listen to what I say, it's like, you can support the channel or you can support the fundraisers. It's just like, you know, there's a clear divide in between the two. It's like, it's not even something we hide. It's like, if you want to support us, super chat. I'm not guaranteeing any of that goes to Ukraine because that's to support us behind the scenes because we do this as a job. If you want to support Ukraine, we run fundraisers. Go support that with your money if you want to support Ukraine directly. It's like, we make it very clear and transparent. So it's like, it's stupid to hear people say that because it's like, that's not how we run this channel. We're not like other channels who sit there and say, oh, pay me personally and then I'll give it to Ukraine. It's like, no, you can pay me personally and you support me. If you want to support Ukraine, here's the way you can support Ukraine through YouTube Give on these fundraisers on Sunday. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Frequency Harmonic, who says Business Insider reports that Russian EW has downed almost all TB2s. The few left are reduced to recon duty. And thoughts on impact of Ukraine effort without them?
I would doubt the validity of a statement like that, considering that we have seen Bayraktars in action, and every once in a while the SBU puts out footage of them actually destroying targets on the front line. So I would honestly say that that's probably not true. It's just that they are classified as state secrets by Ukraine, so we don't get to see a lot of video footage or proof of them in action. So with that, thank you so much once again for support, and I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Francois Joseph Lacroix, who says the reverse drone used in Moscow was the Beaver, a new long-range drone developed by Ukraine.
And I thank you for the support and sharing that with us. And I will be trying to look into that after stream, but I don't think that necessarily indicates that the Ukrainians were directly involved in that attack. It may have been something that partisans were able to get a hold of. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support and sharing that little tidbit of info with us. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a €5 super chat from Wellness LSA SA, who says, Matt Torture, Ma Goo. I don't know about this one now. I don't know. I might delete this one to the enforcer.
Oh, man. No, I don't think I'm reading that one. Dude, you remember that one thing, man, where it was like, it was a meme where this guy was looking at Buzz Lightyear or something like that, and he was like, there's no way anyone would look like Buzz Lightyear. And then someone knocked on the door, and they opened it, and it was a guy whose face literally looked like the cartoon Buzz Lightyear's, and he said, giggity, giggity, go! And then, like, they looked back at the other guy, and his eyes were, like, popping out of his face.
I think so.
That super chat has that same energy, I'm not gonna lie. But still, thank you for the support, Willis. Sadly, we're not going to be able to read all of that off, but small Matt Torture, and then it says at the end of the whole thing, love you, and thank you so much for the support, Willis, and helping this channel keep on running, but I don't think we'll be able to read that one off. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Trister1, who says all these channels need Sister Mary Elizabeth and the ruler that I remember from St. Rose of Lima in North Syracuse. She would straighten all this out.
And I thank you for the support, Chester. And maybe she will be able to straighten all that out. And so with that, I hope that does answer that fairly well. And also to answer Cool Kids of the City, that is a markedly wrong number. And I highly suggest that when you go and look at Playboard, you go and click the Find Details and notice that it counts the fundraisers on Sunday as income, although that's through YouTube Give, which is not income, and YouTube clearly states that. So, go make sure to go and look at that, because you'll see that that's completely untrue and is adding up almost all of that, and that's how they're getting that total. You can also see that on other channels as well. You can go around and look at all of the YouTube channels that have run a fundraiser through YouTube Give, and you'll notice that if those donations show up in the live chat, that gets counted by Playboard as their income, although that is not their income, because YouTube manages those accounts, and the YouTubers can't even touch the money at all. It's in a completely separate account run by YouTube. But with that, hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And we have another super chat from Rocky, who puts in a $5 donation. He says, question, what country spent 100 of billions on their military but was extremely shamed on TV for everyone to see? LOL.
That would be Российской Federacji. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. Hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
And the next one goes to Polly's911, who puts in a 5 and says, Russians are on huge cope mod all over the internet. Disinformation and denial spam of Vatniks is over 9,000. It makes me so happy to see them cry.
It makes me very happy to see them cry as well. I love to see it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. Hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Still Thinking, who puts in a 5 and says, just a small thank you for what you guys do. LSA and Slav Ukraine.
And thank you so much for the support. And also, LSA to you, Still Thinking. And I'm still thinking. Thank you for the support. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Z Green, who says, you've mentioned you're both of Welsh heritage on Sunday stream. Check your P.O. box in the next week, and you'll find a traditional Welsh treat. Enjoy.
And I thank you so much for the support. And I thank you for sending a traditional Welsh treat. Sadly, we never eat food that comes through the mail. I hate to say that. I really do. But it's always like, it's a kind of like a safety thing, because, we never really know. But I do thank you for the support. And I thank you for sending that. Sadly, the P.O. Box will be closed down soon, so that'll probably be one of the last things that goes into the P.O. Box. But thank you once again for sending it, because we will be taking a look at it. We might not be able to guarantee that we eat it, but we will look at it nonetheless. And so with that, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dupper Bob, who says, Slav Ukraine.
And Slav Ukraini. And thank you so much once again for the support, Dupper Bob. And of course, always throwing in the consistent $2 support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And moving on to our live chat questions, we are all out of super chats, and thank you all once again very much for that support. And we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. Mark Hodges, Cife, JP's Gone Fishing, Cliff Simonson, Earl Bernew, and Paul Schultz. They said tonight's Morse Cipher says, Ukraine breaks the Russians where they are their strongest. Glory to Ukraine.
That is correct. That is the message. They are breaking the Russians where they're the strongest in Bakhmut. I gotta say, it's never been better. And so with that, thank you for deciphering that Morse code message and always being able to do that through 461 days of the war. And so with that, we are now on into our live chat questions, but unfortunately, due to time constraints tonight, due to the long length of the news segment and also all of the super chats that came in, which made the super chat segment incredibly long, we'll only be able to answer live chats probably for about the next 7 minutes. But with that, we are on to the first one.
And the first one goes to Luis Rodriguez, who says, what do you think of the land lease Russia just did in Cuba for the military base? Are we back, the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Probably not, because it will be very difficult for them to get a fleet through either NATO waters or through the Bosphorus Strait to get nuclear weapons over there, because they're certainly not flying them there. They would have to sail them there on a ship, and that's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for them to do, at least for the foreseeable future. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
The next one goes to Siba, who says, could the Moscow attack hinder arms to Ukraine by the West?
No, I don't think so. It was most likely a partisan attack, so the Ukrainians don't really have any direct, I guess you could say, responsibility for that attack or its consequences. And so with that, hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Alex Wolf, who says, why are they getting Storm Shadow over ATACMS missiles?
They are getting Storm Shadow missiles because the Storm Shadows actually have a better chance of making it to its target because it's stealth, and it also has a much farther range. On top of that, I believe for the cost of the unit and its abilities, it is probably more economical long term. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Carmen V, who says, maybe drone attack is a false flag to excuse using larger bombs in Ukraine.
It may be. That's one of the theories out there, and I can't really rule that one out. So it's a pretty valid idea as far as to go. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to Pedro Martins Costa, who says, physics question, Prigozhin and Putin are both at 80 miles per hour. Who will hit the window first and why?
Wait, reread that one again? Reread the line.
Prigozhin and Putin are both at 80 miles per hour. Who will hit the window first and why?
Prigozhin, because the sleek nutsack of a head he has will help him out aerodynamically. Putin still has a small amount of hair on his head, which will provide a small amount of drag, so it'll probably slow him down a little bit below 80 miles an hour, maybe 79 miles an hour, but it'll be very close in between the two of them. And so with that, I hope that does suggest that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Charles Martel, who says, why are we not sending any Apache gunships to Ukraine?
I don't really know why. That's another criteria of weaponry that we've never really touched on. It may be that we consider advanced helicopters like that, at least in the kind of war Ukraine's fighting, obsolete or not usable, at least at the moment, and that may be why we're not sending them. But the honest answer is I don't really know why we wouldn't be sending those. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to Broccoli by Nature, who says, don't you think this was likely Ukraine with the goal of putting pressure on Putin politically and getting Russia to reposition anti-air resources?
It may be the objective of partisans to do that, but I don't think the Ukrainians were involved in this attack, although they could have been. But I have a feeling it was most likely partisans. But that may be the attempt in the drone attack, is to relocate air defenses once again from the battlefield and into Russia to belay the fear of the citizenry. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to N. Hansen, who says, could Nutsack be behind the drone attack on Moscow?
Nutsack's probably not behind it. Nutsack's got bigger things to do, like hiding from the Russians instead of attacking them, so I have a feeling Nutsack was not behind that at all, at least in my opinion. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Larry C., who says, Ukraine artillery is incredibly precise. I'm wondering if they're using laser homing copperhead rounds and using a drone as the laser target. I haven't seen any reports about that.
I wouldn't really know if they are or aren't. That would be a little bit out of my expertise because I don't know that much about the artillery, but it could be within the realm of possibility. Who really knows? And so with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
This one goes to JJ, who says, a news channel says that the Bayraktar is not flying or is not active in the war due to losses and limited strike capability, and what say you?
I would say... Can you reread that one again? Well, reread the line.
A news channel says that the Bayraktar is not flying or is not active in the war due to losses and limited strike capability.
I would say that's it might lightly be true, but we still see that the SBU puts out video clips of new Bayraktar strikes every once in a while. So I would say that's not completely out of the question, but I have a feeling it most likely is more so fable than truth. At least at the moment. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who asked the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and that viewer is Happy Dragon, who says, Enforcer, do you think Wagner will start fighting for Ukraine, much like when Russia fought for Germans, but when betrayed, switched to fight for the West like in World War II?
It may be possible for them to do that, but considering that they're moving on into Syria and Central Africa, that probably won't be the case because they'll be pretty far away from most Western forces, save the exceptional American Special Forces unit or French Special Forces unit that would be in Central Africa or Syria. And so with that, hope that does address that question fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an amazing night of news, and if y'all did enjoy, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because we run this channel 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single night except for Monday. And so with that, long live the Lee Spring Army. Good night, good luck, stay safe, take care, and of course, Slava Ukraini, and long live, once again, the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army never dies.
And good night. Love Ukraine, and 3 more days, Papa.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.